Peace. Peace and greetings. All right. All right, we're running a couple minutes behind. Apologize for that. I was waiting to get some more people in the room. Apologize. Running just a few minutes late this evening. So I'm just going to give it a couple minutes and then we'll go ahead and start. Let me just get situated here. We will begin. All right. Just get this stuff situated. All right. Peace and greetings to everybody that's here so far. Stuffed Dog, DR, Sister Myra. We're just waiting a minute or two. Just bear with me. We'll start shortly. All right. All right. So before we get into part two, this will finish off what we just started discussing last week. Before we do that, just a couple quick announcements before we begin, as I usually do, just to keep people abreast of what's going on. We will, again, I know I reached out, I believe, to mostly everybody that contacted me about the event, which will be Friday, January 25th at 8 o'clock. Down here in Fort Lauderdale. That will be the ritual of a pet, the adversary of chaos and darkness. We usually still plenty of time to request an invite. I put it out early just in case, people have to travel, make arrangements. I try to get it out there as early as I can. We usually cut off the invites the Wednesday before the ritual. So we run it up until 2 days before. We at least need to cut it by then, so we, can make preparations and know exactly who is coming. So if you are interested in that, I'll give you the email, which is in the description box of all the videos, khnum19@gmail.com. Spiritual readings and consultations. A lot of people, I know it's increased the beginning of the year, and a lot of people are doing, yearly forecast readings and just regular readings or consultations. I am quite busy with it right now. I'm still on the 2 to 3 day tier. I know some people contacted me today, so it is just slightly backed up. I will be caught up by Thursday. So if you contact me after this video, moving on into tomorrow, we're probably looking at sometime over the weekend. I just want to put that out there. I don't want to take on too much simultaneously and take away from working with somebody else and rush it. But I'm going to say 2 to 3 days, in some cases 3 days, depending on where your availability is, until Thursday. I will get caught up pretty much on the readings and the consultations by Thursday. That's pretty much a guarantee. So still can get to you in a reasonable time. So if you're interested in that, online classes, this Saturday is the final session of this session that we started about 7 weeks ago. The new session will be for the online classes. Will be beginning at late March. Like I said, as soon as this last session is over, sometime by the end of this month, I will have all the information, the curriculum, and you'll get all the information, dates, times, etc. I will forward that out to those that request it or are interested in signing up for that fall session. I'm sorry, spring session. Skipping. I'm thinking of next fall already. Also, wanted to announce now, put it out there, two things. We did a 2-day gathering in October, which is usually in the last weekend. It was the last weekend of October, I believe, or the weekend before Halloween. Every October, we're going to make that an annual gathering, a 2-day gathering with different workshops, presentations, rituals, and we're going to call that. We're going to keep that title what it's focused on, the journey of the Black Adept. So we're definitely going to be doing that again in October. I want to put that out super early. I know it's only January, but that'll be a special, it's an all-day, 2-day event for the people that came to the past one. It was nice. We all really learned from each other. I learned from a lot of the presentations myself, and it was good to see, other people get up there and do presentations. And if you're also coming to that event in October, what I also want to offer, if you're attending and you want to do a presentation on something, I would like you to contact me, and I'll make time on a platform for you to do a presentation on a spiritual topic that's connected to this path and what we talk about on this channel. So I want to put that out there for October. It'll be right, I believe we did it the weekend before Halloween. I want to try to keep it around the same time every year, like an annual 2-day gathering. We had a good time. I mean, it was a lot of energy where it was a little time consuming, but it was well worth the time and the stuff that we were able to get accomplished in a 2-day period. So we're definitely going to do that again in October, and that'll obviously be the second Journey of a Black Adept 2. We'll just call it that every year and number it. So I want to aim for that on an annual basis, to do that regularly. And again, if you are interested in presenting something, people that did presentations at the last event, everybody had, it was about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. You just let us know. So I'd like to see if, when people come this year, more people to participate in doing presentations. But I just want to throw that out there. We're real early, and I'll keep reminding that. So that'll be October, 2-day event. It's all weekend. We're going to do that again in October. Something that I'm getting ready to finalize and work on, which is going to be a good thing to incorporate something new. I'll make that announcement as soon as I have that finished and organized in the next couple of days, probably on the next feed. And I think it's going to be a really cool thing. I think it's going to be pretty good as far as the concept and the idea. But I'll put that out in a couple of days. I'm finishing up a few things on it. And then I'll present it. So we got all that good stuff. So again, readings, consultations, classes, the event, any of the information I talked about, you can email me at the email in the description of all the videos, which is KHN. I actually just put it in there one time. But again, if you forget, you don't have to ask again. I put it in the description box of all the videos. All right. So that takes care of the preliminaries. All right. So I want to finish up with this topic because there's a lot of bullshit going on YouTube right now with all this Baphomet shit and, occult. It just amazes me, number one, how people of different melanated descents, be they Black, Latino, or whatever your ethnicity is, quote unquote, in the melanated family, how spooked the fuck out people are. And it just goes to show you the mental programming. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this topic, to show, people got to get out of this bullshit as if you're going to find everything in a book. Obviously, the word occult means hidden, right? There's always going to be a hidden science and a hidden meaning to particular information to the individual. But you got these fools on the internet, who, because they can't locate it in a book somewhere and it doesn't line up with their personal ideology, they get spooked out and they fear it. So there's a lot of nonsense with this Baphomet bullshit going on. People still spooked out, think that Baphomet is the actual, some type of deity or entity, it's a form of devil worship, because it's a fucking symbol. Okay. And I've been saying that for I don't know how many years. It's a symbol that's heavily used in alchemy, this path in general. It's gotten incorporated in this path in many different facets over the years, because many different spiritual systems connect and link into it. I just find it crazy how still, because of the spookism, right? It's the same shit. How it's funny how they'll sit there and tell you how Islam, Christianity, and Judaism was infiltrated and watered down by, European, colonialism, and how they infiltrated all those areas of information. Well, they did the same thing with this path too. See, what tends to happen is because you might see Baphomet in some circles, right? When you look at, for let's per se say the Satanic Church, you see it there, but it's used in a little bit of a different context. And I think a lot of people that are spooked out on it, that's kind of their reference point. So I've been doing this topic, second part of this topic, to show you it's all about perception. It's all about how you perceive it. It's all about how you look on it. So before I get into that, I just want to throw that nonsense out there. But before I get into it, I just want to make this clear like I did in last week's video before I start. As I mentioned in last week's video, this was probably as a young teenager, 15, 16 years old, going back to 87, 88. This was probably my first introduction to any spiritual awareness or consciousness, whatever the fuck you want to call it, whatever makes you feel good. This was my first introduction to any level of knowledge or spirituality. All right. I was probably studying the lessons studied them consistently throughout the years. But as I said in the last video, I got sidetracked and got into other things later on. I want to make this clear. This is not a video to disrespect or to be negative about the 5% nation of gods and earth or Father-in-law. As I said before, I have the utmost respect for Father-in-law. I have the utmost respect for the 5% nation and the nation of gods and earths. I still keep in contact with many of them, some that I knew in New York, some here. I do build, though I want to make it clear, I do not belong to any specific geographical location or a full-fledged member of the organization or the group. I want to make that clear. This is my personal perspective on the breakdown from an occult perspective of how one on this path can view these degrees and these lessons and apply them to self any way he or she needs form to make that information and knowledge work for them. All right. So I want to make that clear. All right. Now, I know, having said that, I know not everybody is going to agree with my perception and concept of it. And I don't expect everybody to agree with it. More so probably people that quote unquote might be mainstream, if that's the right term, members of the 5% nation of gods and earths. And I say this with all due respect. I really couldn't give a shit because I'm not presenting it in that shape, form, or fashion. Just like anybody has the ability to scrutinize, again, what I'm breaking down in regards, I also have a right to scrutinize and break down the degrees how I see fit. So I just want to make that clear. So, and I'm saying that, as I said in last week's video, if you stumble across the video after it uploads and say you are a 5% or a nation of gods and earth, I want to make that clear. This video is done out of the utmost respect, but keep in mind, it's from an occult perspective. I'm going beyond the surface meanings. Now, remember, all information is encoded in layers. You have the exoteric surface level of information, and then you have the esoteric, which is the inner or the more significant meaning. As I said before, last week we went over the student enrollment 1 to 10. We went over the Muslim C lesson, the 1 to 36, and we went over the lost and found 1 to 14. You can't take everything literal in there. It's not historically accurate. That's a fact. Some might say otherwise, but I went over that last week, as I will do now as we go through today, the 1 to 40 and the actual and solar facts and the universal flag. I will break that down. And again, there's going to be some historical inaccuracies in there. And let me give you an example. Like, as I said last week, we got to look at the bigger picture and the meaning and how you can apply it to self, such as the population of original people on the planet Earth, the circumference of the planet Earth. We know the planet is constantly contracting and expanding. So that number has changed. You got to remember that was at the time of the writing when these were put into practice. Of course, common sense says that number is going to change. But see, we get sidetracked focusing on that bullshit and we lose sight of the core essence of what the teaching was trying to relate. So I'm trying to show you to focus on that. And if you're on this path, you don't have to be a member of the 5% nation of gods and earth to apply these degrees. So I want to make that clear. I want to make sure that's crystal clear. For those that are here watching now, and for when the video uploads later and other people stumble across it, I want to make that crystal clear. All right. Once I'm done going through this, then I'll go through your questions and your comments. Be patient. I do want to get through the material. Like I did last week, we want to go one by one. And as I said, unfortunately, in this day and time, and I say unfortunately because most people don't really grasp the material, how it was given to us back in the day. When I first stumbled across the 120, it was given to you in sections based on, after you showed proficiency in them. Now you pretty much can get all the degrees. It is easily accessible online. But back then you were given sections at a time. It wasn't easy back then to get, the 120. You kind of pretty much had to earn it. Now, it was different methodologies. I was given the 1 to 10 first. Well, actually, no, let me back that up. I was given the alphabet and the math first. You have to know your alphabet and your math before you can get any of that stuff. And that's the basics. So for an example, today, as I said last week, just the language of the alphabet and the math, in my opinion, speaks volumes, because what they call the alphabet and the math, to me, is more of a language that communicates to the subconscious mind. So right now we're in the month of January, which is the number 1, right? That is knowledge in the math, right? It will be a law, right? In the alphabet. All right, and we are in, today's the 8th day. So today's build and destroy. Number 8 in the math is build or destroy, which is a unique concept on this path. It's no different than saying deconstruction and reconstruction. In order for something to be built, something has to be destroyed. You can apply this to yourself on this path. You constantly have to destroy things about yourself that are hindering you, holding you back, preventing you from getting results, preventing you from evolving and growing spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. And let's not forget, as I like to add all the time now, financially, we're not supposed to be broke on this path. Okay, let's get this, clear. We act as if, everything about money in this world is just from a religious perspective purely evil. That's a bunch of bullshit. You should be a living embodiment of your success. All right, I just want to make that clear. All right. So today will be build or destroy, right? We in the year of wisdom, cipher, knowledge, right? Excuse me. We in the year of wisdom, cipher, born, knowledge born, right? You can use any of these methodologies to communicate build if you are having a cipher. I went over that last week. So if you need a quick review on the mathematics and the alphabets, refer to last week's video. For the sake of time, I want to get into the 1 to 40, all right? And as I said before, so it's been a while, I will go through them word by word. I do not know each one line by line, but as you know, I can build on any of them, all right? And then once you read it, it comes right back to memory, and I'm able to build on it. All right. Now, again, the 1 to 40 is going to start with some stuff that, again, I want to make this clear, is not historically accurate. Don't focus on, and I'll point it out, what is and what is not. Don't focus on that, because to me, that's the lesser of what the degree is trying to communicate, all right? So it goes on to say, who wrote the Holy Quran or Bible, how long ago? And will you tell us why Islam renews its history every 25,000 years? Well, remember, you go into the supreme wisdom, right? They say once the truth circumference the entire earth. Remember, what's the diameter of the planet Earth? 24,896 miles, roughly, keyed off to 25,000 miles. So once that truth travels the whole circumference of the planet Earth, the earth renews its history. That's just simple, right? Then it goes on the answer, and this would be degree number 1 in the 1 to 40, but when you're correlating it to the 120 degrees, it would be degree 61, right? There's 2 ways that this is communicated. Because the degrees are broken down in sections, but when you put them in numerical order, it's 1 to 120. So we're in the 1 to 40, lost found Muslim lesson number 2, we're in degree number 61, all right? So the answer to that question, the Holy Quran or Bible was written by the original man who was Allah, supreme being, the black man of Asia. The Holy Quran or Bible will expire in the year 25,000 or 9,080 years from the date of this writing. So keep that in mind when you're debating historical data, years. Personally, me, I don't really give a shit about any of that stuff. It's irrelevant. Remember, on this path, we're focused on getting results and bettering ourselves. I'm not into all that semantic debate because bottom line, motherfuckers is calculating years. What the fuck you know about 25,000 years? I mean, literally, really, be honest with yourself. I'm bringing that up to say, don't waste too much energy focusing on that. And let me continue. The nation of Islam is all wise and does everything right and exact. The planet Earth, which is the home of Islam, is approximately 25,000 miles. That's why I was just breaking that down, the circumference and the diameter. I'm sorry, circumference. So the wise man of the East makes his history or Quran to equal his home circumference, a year to every mile. I was just going over this. Thus, every time the history lasts 25,000 years, he renews it for another 25,000 year period. Now, 25,000 years makes up what they call a what? An equinox, right? Then you have two equinoxes make up what they call an epoch, which would be roughly 50,000 years. And now it's talking about sun cycles. Now, really, there's some hidden Egyptology in here because we know in the moon cycle, the deity Tahuti rules by way of the moon and the baboon deity. And then in the sun cycle, you're dealing with two concepts. You're dealing with Ra or Re, and you're also dealing with Khepera, an aspect of the sun god. What we know on this path, what Khepera also represents and symbolically ties into the scarab beetle, right? And it also represents remanifestation or coming into the realization of who and what you really are. That's why you will see the scarab beetle used in many different drawings and hieroglyphs in the temple. And you'll see it in a lot of Egyptian literature because of the significance of what it meant. So again, remember, I'm giving you the occult breakdown of this. Is the average person gonna look at it like that? No. I'm trying to tell you, you're getting the concept here when they say 25,000 years moon cycle, 25,000 years sun cycle. It's talking about an epoch. So every time that first 25 is up, it goes from a moon to a sun cycle. Now, is this talking literally? No, because remember, the sun cycle is a cycle that deals with consciousness, regeneration, renewal. When you're in the moon cycle, you're actually recharging yourself. You're absorbing the energies from an occult perspective. All right. What is the circumference of the planet Earth? This is degree lesson 2. All right, and which would be degree 62, 24,896 miles, approximately 25,000. What is the diameter of the planet Earth? That's lesson 3, 7,926 miles in diameter. What is the total square miles of the planet Earth? 196,940,000 square miles. How much land, how much water? This is just basic science. So I'm just going to breeze through this. Land, 57,250,000 square miles. Water, 139,685,000 square miles. And we know almost 67 to 70% of the land mass is water, or the planet, I'm sorry. And that correlates to our connection in our body, same thing. Almost 70% of our body is made of fluid or liquid, right? There's a connection in there. We'll come back to that, all right? What is, or how much land, how much water? All right, that was degree 5, lesson 5, and now we'll go to 6. What is the total weight of the planet Earth? 6 sextillion tons, right? A unit followed by 21 ciphers. All right, this is something you can't take literal. You got to be able to apply the higher science of this because you really can't confirm that. I'm just going to keep it 100%. You can't. All right. How fast does our planet travel? 1,037 1/3 miles per hour. That's how fast it rotates on its axis. Now, probably one of the most important lessons in this 1 to 40 is number 8, because really it ties in to the divine feminine energy, right? Let me explain. Don't take this literal. This is this can be deciphered in a multitude of ways. What makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes, right? This is the question being posed. Now listen to the breakdown. The Earth is approximately covered under water. I'm gonna read what it says here, and then we're gonna discuss this one. Very important. Now notice it's lesson 8, right? Degree 68, right? Today is what? The 8th. It's called the build destroy degree, right? See, if you really understand, there is a lot of numerology in the degrees and the lessons. It's not a coincidence, right? You're going to find when you start to study the lessons and the degrees, mathematically shit just starts communicating to your subconscious mind, and the shit adds up. One mathematically links to the other. This is not a coincidence. When you really study degrees, if this is a area of study that you choose to look into, if not, that's entirely up to you. But you're going to find out the mathematics itself, right? I talked about two things last week. There's two terms you hear for this. You'll hear supreme mathematics was a term still used today, but you'll also hear some gods say living mathematics, because I like to incorporate both. Because how do you take this information in real time and bring it up to speed today in 2018? Well, as a god, as a goddess, you have to add that on with that godlike intelligence, right? This is why I say you got to look at the degrees and put them into perspective, how they're going to suit and fit the path that you're on. That's what a god does. Remember, when you're building in a cipher, as I said last week, they always add those. They might say to you, hey, God, how do you see today's mathematics? The key word or phrase in that question is, how do you see today's mathematics as God? Not just word verbatim as it's written in the lessons, word for word. Yeah, anybody can spit off what they remembered, and yeah, that's not what the question is being asked. That's the surface meaning. But each god has a duty and a responsibility in the cipher to add on to the build. How are you adding on to the build? Because that's how you show forth and prove your what? Your wisdom. Because then when you show forth and prove your wisdom, your knowledge is born, right? That's what they say, right? Your knowledge is born. That's how it becomes knowledge, when somebody acknowledges your wisdom, right? So let's pay attention to that. Let's go a little bit deeper in this. So lesson 8 in the 1 to 40, which is degree 68. What makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes? The earth is approximately covered underwater, approximately 3/4 of its surface. The sun, moon having attracting powers on a planet. While a planet is making its terrific speed of 1,037 1/3 miles on its way around the sun draws this water up into the earth's rotation, which is called gravitation, into a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. As this mist descends higher and increases with the other mist of water and the different currents of the atmosphere until it becomes heavier than the gravitation. Then it distills back into the earth in the form of drops of water or drops of ice. Pay attention to this, because I'm going to show you what this is really talking about from an occult perspective, which depends on how heavy the mist was or the current of air it was in. There are some layers or currents of air real cold and warm, and some that are very swift and changeable. So when this water strikes one of those cold currents, it becomes solid ice in small round drops, or a light fluffy form, which is called snow. The water is never drawn above 6 miles above the earth's surface by the sun and moon. The reason it rains back onto the planet is because the water cannot go outside the earth's atmosphere, which is the high speed of rotation. Around the sun, it makes it impossible. Earthquakes are caused by the Son of Man experimenting with high explosives. In fact, all of the above is caused by the Son of Man, right? Now, it sounds like a lot of just basic science, right, on the surface, and it is, right? But let me continue. We're gonna go a little bit deeper in it. That's the surface breakdown. This is really talking about the female, okay? What takes place in the female, the chaotic waters. I'm going to get a little bit more in depth in that. On the surface, that might be hard to detect because you're focused, again, on the exoteric meaning. This is talking about the female and the feminine energy. Now, the Son of Man, right, which we'll get into later down here, remember, the gods don't believe in any spook god. They believe that you are, God, that you control everything in the universe, that you don't worship or acknowledge the existence of any deity outside of yourself. Now, if that's not Luciferian by nature, if that's not what this path is about by nature, then I don't know what is, because that's what this path is about. I wouldn't even waste my time and energy trying to debate or fight that. Now, they're not going to look at it like that as being from that perspective, because as I was saying in the beginning of the video, when you talk about Baphomet and Lucifer and Luciferianism, people are so spooked out because they automatically correlate it to religion, satanic worship, and in my opinion, a lot of that satanic work, satanic church stuff is more religious than Christianity. To me, this is just my opinion, and I'm not knocking anybody that might be on that path. It's very aesthetic. I think people are still externally worshiping things, walking around saying, "Hail Satan," this and that, because the first thing I would ask a Satanist is, so do you think there's an actual entity, this power, this whatever form you give it? And that's fine if you do. But how does that differ from a Christian that believes that there's a spook God, one that sits up in the sky, right? Which is a contradiction, because if he's up there somewhere in the sky sitting on a throne in heaven, he couldn't be omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. Because if he's there, it's confirmation that he's not here. You understand? There's spookism in that. There's mental enslavement in that. There's slave mentality indoctrination in that. It's that looking for the solution outside of yourself to the problems that you deal with in everyday life. I would ask the modern day Satanist, how does that differ from the belief of a Christian? See, a lot of that stuff is the antithesis to religion and Christianity. I'm saying modern day Satanism. I'm not saying all. All Satan means is the adversary. Being adverse or the adversary to the norm, not being a conformist. I think we get lost in the concept and what it represents. Everything gets turned into man worship. Everything gets turned into external deification worship, right? Because the average person hears Luciferianism or Lucifer, they get their fucking panties on, and I'm talking about the person that's ignorant and spooked out. Because immediately, to show you, they act as if all Luciferianism has something to do with, in their mind, what they've been programmed devil worship is. Not all Luciferianism deals with that. And I went over that. Go back and look at some of the videos I did a short while back. I explained that. I broke that down. Focus is more so on the mental mind state and concept it represents. Self-deification, right? Understanding you are responsible for all your actions at all times. You don't blame nobody for your shortcomings and your faults. You take responsibility for yourself. You also take responsibility for your successes. If you choose to believe in some fictitious spirit God that resides in the sky, that's fine. That's your own personal business. But don't get fucking mad when other people don't agree with that shit. That's all. And if you can't understand that concept, then I really don't know what point you can be pushed towards to get it. Maybe it's just not for you. You understand? Maybe it's just, not your thing. And so just don't fuck with it. But don't get mad. You know what? The funniest thing in life is people, they get pissed when somebody don't agree with their own personal ideology. Not everybody's good. Just like it's crystal clear. When I'm doing videos and topics, I know not everybody's going to agree with everything I'm saying. You shouldn't if you're your own individual. You should only accept truth as a reality until when you confirm it for yourself. That's when it becomes a reality. Not because somebody's standing up there with a title and a reverend collar on, and he's holding a Bible, and he got some bullshit ass degree from some theologian school. That don't make him he or she the sole authority on spirituality. That just means they got a program degree, because them motherfuckers are programmed and they get rehearsed, regurgitated information. But we've been spooked into that. Right? Remember, we were taught at a young age not to question anything. If you come from a religious background, I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about. You were taught, there's certain things you just don't question. And don't act like some of us, because that's why some of us are here today. Don't act like some of us, when we were kids, I know when I was, probably when I started hitting 12, 13, this is when I really started to question shit. Don't front like you wasn't sitting in church and some of this shit just didn't make sense to you. I know around 12 years old is when I really started having some serious questions, some serious doubts about this God concept, life and death, how we got here, where we're going. They're feeding you a fucking fairy tale. Poof, and God snapped his finger and everything was there. It's not what the fucking Bible says. If that was the case, why did it take 7 days? And then the shit that got me baffled is, why does motherfucker have to rest on the seventh day? That's a human frailty. Right? I used to see things in the Bible. God is a jealous God. How can the omnipotent, omniscient, creator of the boundless universes feel a human emotion called jealousy? Or is it we're talking about a multitude of gods when we're reading that Bible? Or is it man who translated that Bible, stamped their own personal emotions in there? Okay? So let's be clear on what the fuck we're reading. Because most people that are Bible thumpers or Bible worshipers, they really don't know what God they're worshiping. I told you, go look in Isaiah 14, verse 12. Lucifer is referred to the son of the morning star. Then go look in Revelations 22, 16. So is Jesus. I told you last week to do a little research. If you look at some of the ancient churches, the Coptic Christians, a lot of the churches in the Middle East, you'll see an image. Even in some places in Europe, you can find it. I believe in southern Italy and the Mediterranean. All you got to do is Google it. You'll see this image of Jesus sitting on the earth perched, and he's got the one hand down, the one hand up. Ain't that the same symbol of Baphomet? I superimposed it in one of the videos that we did a while back. Okay? So my thing is, do people really know who is the God or ruler of that Bible? There's a lot of shit encoded in there that people have no fucking clue. But because they're spoon-fed and they accept anything that's because somebody got a title and stands behind the pulpit and does a lot of hooting and hollering and then passes around a collection basket to pretty much fucking pimp you all your money, people put their trust and faith in that. And when you ask questions like this, you're crazy now. This shit I'm not talking about us, majority of us in here. We're on this path. I'm speaking now in general. I just want to make that clear. You know, the mainstream will look at you like you're fucking, like you're bizarre, right? But anyway, let me get through these and then we'll build. I just want to throw that in there. I know that was a little left field, but all right. Why does the debt? Now you understand, we're going to get into the concept 5%, right? The 10% and the 85. There's a science behind that, all right? Well, we're going to get into that in a second, all right? Why does the devil teach the 85% that a mystery God brings all this? Now remember, on the occult path, the term devil just means adversary. So anybody that is in violation of your personal truth would be an adversary. So that's a twofold word that can be used in many shape, form, or fashions. But when people hear the term devil, they automatically correlate it to an individual, a human, or some type of religious god. Understand the etymology of words and the phonetics of words. There's a trick in that bullshit too. You understand? Like, let me give you an example. And the word theos, I keep telling people this, right? When you're reading the New Testament translation in Greek, and you don't have to be a Hebrew, a Greek scholar to understand the basics. I told people, get the Ryrie Blue. You can go Ryrie Blue Online Study Bible, where it has every verse, Old Testament, New Testament, in Greek and Hebrew. Do your fucking research, because that type of research, these Pastor Pork Chop, Pastor Plate, Pastor Chitlin, they're not even doing it themselves. And when you start getting that knowledge and information, you're going to fuck them up when you start coming at them with questions, right? Here's a trick. I'm going to use this etymology and phonetic play on words. Anytime you see the word God in the New Testament in Greek, it's the word theos, right? All you got to do is go look that up. Don't fucking believe anything I'm telling you. Go look it up for yourself. You have words we use in English that connect. Because if you look in an English dictionary, English is the youngest baby language on the planet Earth. It has root in every other language that came before it. So really, there's nothing you're saying in English that's genuine or original. That's why it's one of the few languages where people can't take other languages, and there's some things you can't translate in English. That's how very young this language is. So one, we're looking at these things in English and completely confused because it's being spoon-fed to us on how we should see it and how we should perceive it. The word theos. Then you have a group of people that exist in society today called atheists, right? Both of those words have root in the English word we use, theory. Okay, look at the fucking trick that they're playing on you. So they use the Greek word theory, which is theos, for God in the Bible. So they're telling you right on the surface, this is their theory or concept of God. They're not telling you it's factual, it's a theory. So to the point that they refer to him in the Greek as theos, right? And an atheist who believes, okay, an atheist who believes they don't believe in God, a theist, a theory, you still have a theory, whether you do or you don't. because you spend your time proving the non-existence of a God. And you have these silly fucking ideologies of how you think things came into existence and creation. That's another story for another time. I won't get too much of that right now. All right. So there's a play on words. Take your time and do the research. See, a lot of us think that we're beyond this, what I like to call this spell of spookism of religion. We're not, because I've seen so many people carried over into this path, into their magic, working rituals. You know how many emails I still get on a daily basis of how to approach deity? How do you work with deity when you're working magic? Remember, this path is not about worshiping anything. It's about embodying what the deity represents, putting on the mask, right? We call it in Egyptian, Luciferian, left-hand path magic, putting on the deific mask. The adept or the magician's goal is to embody the aspects of what that deity represents. So if I'm doing a ritual with Tahuti, he deals with wisdom. The ritual is going to be designed and centered around increasing my knowledge and wisdom. How? By looking through the eyes of Tahuti. The difference is with the Hoteppers and all the conscious people, they're too busy worshiping and acknowledging how great Egypt used to be, and they're groveling and honoring statues and bowing in front of them, just like Catholics do when they go to Catholic church. The difference with them and us, I'm not trying to worship Tahuti or pray to Tahuti. I'm trying to become motherfucking Tahuti. But all of it ties into the core essence of that raw, the main man, and I say main man symbolically, Set, the real prince of darkness. Any black adept or magician that works Egyptian Luciferian magic knows what Set is and represents. And you're going to find out everything they told you to stay the fuck away from is the shit you should have gravitated towards. I'm learning that years later now. I'm 47, going to be 48 in June. And I can go back to in my teens and early 20s I could still remember and see some of the faces. Don't fuck with that. Don't read that. Listen to how fucked up somebody got to be to tell you, don't read that shit. It's evil. How the fuck do you know? That's my question. Either you know because you're evil, or you know or don't know because you're scared shitless. And fear creates ignorance. To me, fear and ignorance is worse than your concept of evil. Most people on the planet suffer from a disease today called motherfucking ignorance. It's the number one disease that plagues the planet. See, what people don't know, they fear. So they might hear things. You might hear things I'm talking about tonight. So maybe when this video uploads later, new people, you might hear this shit and go, oh, man, that shit sounds crazy. That fucking guy's nuts. He's a devil worshiper. He's this and that. Good. Thank you very much for the compliment. 2, and it only confirms your fucking ignorance. That's it. See, a fool is quick to pass judgment on something he or she does not know about. That's what a fool does. A wise man knows he knows nothing and sits back and absorbs. See, if you know me for years and been around me for years, I can sit in a circle and you learn a lot from a fool. And I'll sit around and I'll always catch some fool babbling, running his mouth. And I'll just sit there and be quiet and wait till he's complete. He or she is done. And then I'll say, you're done. This way they can't backtrack on any of their statements. And then you go over everything they said. Because you can learn from a fool. But most people react out of fear and ignorance. And remember, this path is not about being a reactionary being. It's about being a proactive being. You want the solutions to all the bullshit that's going on in the world right now, politics, society, the government. It's all fear-based. If you let it define you, it's gonna fucking define you, okay? It's gonna define you. See, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. There's not worldwide problems right now, but see, it's an illusion that you're created. If you want to be part of that experiment, you will. If you understand the science of being an adept, and the first rule of thumb of practicing black magic is the adept, he or she controls themselves and their immediate surrounding environment. Nobody can fucking penetrate that. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. So it limits what that stuff can affect you with outside of that circle. It's very limited. Because I tell you this, I've been, even 2008, when the economy was fucking bad and the housing market was shot to death, my money and my personal life has never been affected by it. It wasn't then, it will not be now. Because there's a reason for that. I'm going to eat one way or the other. I'm not going to have to explain all that openly. I'll leave your minds to wander on that.
But if your shit is right and you got your house in order, let me tell you that. How the fuck can we this disillusioned bullshit about getting everybody together and being united, especially in the melanated conscious community, is fucking comical. All right. Why is it comical? They feed you this fucking pie in the sky. Let's all unite and hold hands, and it's going to be peace and love until we come. How many fucking years we got to sit around and listen to this as soon as we come together and put our money? I heard some motherfucker talking on YouTube the other day about Black Wall Street. Well, let me say something about that real quick. If they were able to do that way back then, when racism was running way rampant, when people were being fucking lynched, where you couldn't be a certain color and have an X amount of money, you'd be killed just for that. You couldn't even look at. If these motherfuckers were able to set up a village and create a whole economy in that society, then why are you motherfuckers still broke today and you can't do a motherfucking thing? Why are you still sitting around shooting videos talking about we need to put our money together? And let me say this. Don't confuse a hustle as a legitimate business. Just because your dumbass is selling DVDs, incense, and oils and making soap, set up at a table on a street corner, that's not a business. That's a hustle. Understand the difference between making real money and motherfucking chump change. So you motherfuckers want to lecture on Black Wall Street and your nickel and diamond? That's fucking comical to me, because I give them more props for doing it back then in those times, in those circumstances. See, we ain't got as much as an excuse now. There wasn't all this technology. Knowledge is right at your disposal. It's called the motherfucking internet, Google, and Wikipedia. Ain't nobody in their right fucking mind got an excuse why they're not able to do something on some level of success. I'm not saying there ain't going to be obstacles and challenges. But if you're constantly looking for the crutch to lean on and find reason why you can't do something, you're going to continue to fall in that category of somebody that's going to fail. See, I always say this. You can get from people a million reasons why they can't, but you can't get one reason why they can. So I don't want to hear about no motherfucking Black Wall Street. We need to come together. Black people need to unite. Latinos need to unite. We need to live our culture, yada, yada, yada. You know why that's a bunch of bullshit? The motherfuckers that are telling you that ain't even got their shit together. How the fuck is somebody going to help you when their shit is jacked up? When their life is a personal mess, their family's a personal mess, their money is jacked the fuck up. Some of them are living in their mom's basement, driving $25,000, $30,000 cars, fronting. Ain't got no substance of success on any level. My thing is, I look at a motherfucker, I judge you. You should be a living embodiment of the knowledge that you teach. If I don't see that reflected in your way of life externally, you're fronting. I don't even need to hear the rest. Don't talk to me about health and wealth when you're piss broke. And I'm not judging anybody for that struggling, because the human condition can sometimes overcome it. I'm not cracking on anybody that's struggling. It is a human life. I go through periods where I struggle. We all are going to have periods where we struggle. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the person that's sincerely out there doing something, but is embracing the struggles along the path, but continues to fight and do what they need to do to get through it. I'm talking about the motherfucker that sits back and finds an excuse for every reason why they fail at shit. Okay? That's the person that I'm speaking to. The ones, like, every time I go back home to New York, I see the same people I used to go to school with standing on the corner talking about the same shit they were talking about 15, 20, 25 years ago. Well, if you got your pants hanging off your ass and you look grungy like you took a shower in like 3 weeks, of course nobody want to do any business with. You got to know how to play the role. And fuck people tell you that, oh, you don't have to be, you shouldn't be a sellout. No, you need to know how to play the motherfucking role, because they knew how to play the role when they invaded countries and pretended they were your friend. See, the difference is they infiltrated. We don't know how to infiltrate something and master it. We want to know, how the fuck are you going to make a change in politics and the education system if you don't get up inside that motherfucker and make a change? Okay? You need to get up in there, and then you can have an influence. And then, well, see, you can only go as far as you want to go in there. Okay? Anybody that tells you otherwise is full of shit. See, we're not teaching the kids the right shit. There's more to being just a rapper and a fucking basketball player, an athlete. They act like the only thing these young kids can do is get a football scholarship and make it to the fucking pros, or a basketball scholarship. Why are we not teaching these kids to pursue careers as doctors and lawyers, scientists? That's how you get up there and make the change. The reason why we can't make no change is because we're still disillusioned, chasing this false concept of wealth. Because if this doesn't change first, nothing externally changes, period. So I'm not with all that shit. We need to save people, because I'm not trying to save nobody. I'm not interested. I couldn't give a fuck. Let me just make that clear. If you think this is a mission about saving people, you are completely delusional. Okay? Now, back then, when I was part of all those Mickey Mouse clubs, yes, I was on that shit back then. And I saw the same shit that they was talking back then, they talking today over 20-something years later. And it showed me it's also a form of programming and mental conditioning. Consciousness has become a religion in certain circles. All they've done is just dipped it in chocolate. I mean, look at the Black Hebrew Israelites. Fuck it, I got to call it for what it is. Don't sit here and tell me motherfucking King James was black and you have these fucking whack historical facts to support it. Please. And then it's just convenient for you to use the King's English translation of the Bible. You speak whack-ass Yiddish Hebrew. Anybody that speaks or knows a little bit of it knows it's not classical fucking Hebrew. That's another problem I got. And all you did was dip all the prophets in chocolate. Why is it we still feel the need to cling on to this mythology that's not a reality? That's the shit. And this is my objective of doing this, to remove the mythology and apply the occult science to yourself and how you can work with it and grow from it. All right. Anyway, let me catch in the Holy Ghost there. Catching that Holy Spirit. Now let me stop. All right, let's get through this because I definitely don't want to do this next week. All right. So let's finish this. The ninth lesson. Why does the devil teach the 85% that in mystery God brings all this? To conceal the true and living God, who is the Son of Man, and to make slaves out of the 85% by keeping them worshiping something he knows they cannot see. So it's telling you 85% of the population are spooked out. They worship a slave God. That's a reality. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. All right. And he lives and makes himself rich from their labor. So these people that deceived, you got the people, the elite, the people of power. The funny thing is, most of the people that promote this shit don't even follow it themselves. Look at all your successful, wealthy people. Look at and I'm not talking about your crook Christian ministers like Joel Osteen and Benny Hinn. They're motherfucking crooks. They're pimping the Bible and religion to get money. I'm not talking about that person. Look at your Ted Turners, your global people worldwide that have real money. I don't care if they're white or black. Check their research and what they studied and what they learned. You're going to see the further they got away from religion, even go read Ted Turner's story. The further they got away from religion is when they became successful. Okay. Now, if you're religious and you're going to spook out and go, see, that's because they're evil and they got the spirit of the devil. See, that's religious theology. Prove to me that shit being true without using some fucking book, because I always ask a Christian this and they get mad. Prove to me God exists without using the Bible. They can't do it. They get spooked, right? Because if you believe that God created everything in the first chapter of Genesis, well, tell me how God got there. And don't get spooked on me and go, well, you see, brother, there's some things, Lord works in mysterious. That's all slave-minded, coon nonsense. I'm not trying to hear that, okay? Just say you don't know, and we're cool. Just say you don't know. And then you'd have to admit you're operating on blind faith. But does not your Bible say faith without works is dead? So where's the works, the documented facts behind that faith? It don't say have blind, ignorant faith. According to their book, it says faith without works is dead. Okay? So you would have to admit you don't really know what you're worshiping. That's what this is trying to tell you, right? Let's go on. The 85% knows that it rains, hails, snows, and they also hear thunder above their head, but they do not try to find out who is causing all this to happen. By letting the 5% teach them, the 5% represents the poor righteous teachers on the planet, not poor in the sense of wealth. I've heard this argument. Oh, so how can we be gods and we're poor? It didn't mean that they were poor. It means when these lessons were written, they were given to the gods on the poorest part of the planet, which is the United States of America. How do you know that to be a fact? Because the United States of America spends its time fighting wars and military in every other country for natural resources, be it oil, gold, diamonds. Outside of oil here, and maybe gold in some parts of the West Coast, the abundance of it is nowhere near on the level that it is other countries. So when it says that the 5% represent the poor righteous teachers on the planet, it don't mean that they're poor. Okay, because I said, well, we should be rich. I've heard this argument for years. Understand the context and how it was written, okay? That's the shit. People focus on that, but they miss that overall message we just discussed. They want to focus on that little shit. I see this all the time. All right, let's go on. Who is the mystery God? This so applies to us on this path. I can't even stress. Who is that mystery God? There is no mystery God. Here's the answer. Lesson 10 in the 1 to 40. The Son of Man has searched for that mystery God for trillions of years and was unable to find this mystery God. So they agreed that the only God is the Son of Man, right? When we get to the universal flag, you'll understand that a little bit more. And we lost no more time in searching for that which does not exist. So what this degree is saying, we finally fucking woke up when we separated ourselves from that mental slave God, that illusionary God that doesn't exist. We spent tons of time searching for that which did not exist. And once we realized we were God, we put that to bed. And we started to have our moment of Kepera, right? We came into the realization. We had our aha God moment. We came into the realization of who and what we really are. That the only thing that can be proven as a fact as God is the Son of Man, right? Who also was referred to the Son of Man in the Bible. Understand the statement, because people say, well, that sounds like a mortal statement. Understand the symbolicism of it. Was not, according to Christian theology, Jesus God in the flesh, and he was referred to what? Or referred to as what? The Son of Man. It's that fucking simple, all right? Lesson 11, would you sit up at home and wait for a mystery God to bring you food? I love this one. You want to know why I love this one? Listen to the answer, and then I'm going to build on this. Emphatically no. Me and my people who have been lost from home for 379 years have tried this mystery God for food, clothing, and shelter. Remember the 12 jewels of Islam, right? But received nothing but hard times, hunger, nakedness, and thrown out of doors. Also beaten and killed by those who advocated that kind of God. Let me show you this. I'm going to fucking tear this. I'm going to rip a new asshole in this one. No relief came to us until the Son of Man came to our aid, who in the name of our prophet W.D. Muhammad, right? Let's talk about this. Would you sit at home and wait for a mystery God to bring you food, clothing, and shelter? Would you sit at home and wait for a mystery God to pay your mortgage or your rent or your car note? Would you sit at home and rely on a mystery God to feed your kids, pay for your kids' education, etc.? Answer is no. If you want to see the power or the lack of power that this mystery God has, and it's funny how people have faith when it's convenient for them. Sit at home, don't do nothing, okay? And you will starve to death and be out on the street in a matter of weeks. So what this degree is basically saying, we're not going to sit on our ass and wait for anybody or anything to do anything for us, because that didn't work. Because remember, I've said this years ago, how can you worship the same God, which was the same God that the slave master called upon, is the same God that they used to keep you in slavery? It's that fucking simple. So how in their right mind can anybody accept the slave master's God? Because what's the first thing they did to not all the slaves, some of the slaves? First thing they did was give them a Bible, stripped them of their culture, their language, their way of life, took their gods from them. All you got to do is go into the slave trade, the Yoruba, for an example, right? The Portuguese slave masters bring them to this country and force them to take on Catholicism. But as intelligent and wise as we are, we came up with a synchronized system of worshiping the African gods behind the icon of Catholic saints. Santa Barbara was Shango to us, right? Different aspects of the Virgin Mary to us was we hid the acknowledgement of the great god Yemaya and Oshun, or Oya in some cases, right? St. Peter was synchronized with Ogun. You still see this in botanicas today, whether it's a Haitian botanica or a Latino botanica, okay? Now, I don't think it's necessary in this day and time to still hold on to the traditions, but I understand it because I understand there's ancestral lines and lineages that connect with that. I had to learn that the hard way. But I'm trying to show you and connect this. So even even in our most perilous time, we were able to still connect. That's called wisdom. Understand that God never worked for us, because I know I watched my father and mother, my mother's mother and father, my father's mother and father, etc., They've been saying this same shit for I don't know how many years. How long are we going to sit around and wait for this spook of mystery God to come and do something for us? Okay? It's not going to happen, people. Wake the fuck up. We need to wake up and put on our big boy pants and our big girl underwears and start taking responsibility ourselves. You want change, you need to bring it yourself. You want a better life, you need to get off your ass and do it yourself. You ain't happy with your job, either find another one or start your own business. Stop working for motherfuckers, but just do it smart. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and gloat about what I do and don't do, but I've at least gotten my time and my life managed into a situation where I can focus on myself. I don't have to worry about that nonsense because that's step one. Okay? Step one is most people complain of the circumstances that they're dealt. Remember, you are where you are because that's where you're supposed to be. And I don't want that to sound like jibber jabber. You are where you are, and you're supposed to be where you are because of the decisions you make. You made conscious decisions and choices, and that's really what karma is. It ain't got nothing to do with anything spooky. It's cause and effect. Don't let nobody bullshit you with all this. Oh, be careful if you do that. It's going to be this negative evil. No. Karma is quite simple. Let me take the spooky bullshit out of it for you. Karma is nothing but the concept of cause and effect. The cause, the decision and the choices you make. The effect, by the decision and choices you make, is going to have a large determining factor of the effect. Henceforth, we got fucking karma. Let's not spook it out. I've heard it all. I know somebody's going to go, well, in Buddhism, fuck all that shit. I want to hear none of that fluffy shit. I'm trying to take this down to a very simple level, and I'm connecting it to this degrees. Karma is nothing but cause and effect. I don't give a fuck with nobody's. You can get spooked and spiritual and, well, you know, the energetic forces of the planet. Fuck all that shit. Okay? Let's just keep it real. Let's start with the basics. See, a lot of people like to go spook and space cadet, and they don't like to deal with their immediate bullshit, right? Motherfuckers is worried about meditating and levitating and being healers, but yet they can't pay their fucking mortgage. They can't take care of their kids and feed their babies, but they want to lecture you on what they know. I'm not taking no advice from some broke, dusty ass motherfucker. Now, if you're skilled in that area and I see it by your example, I'm going to keep quiet because there's something I can learn from you. But I ain't gonna sit there and you're all dusty, crusty, and broke, and you want to tell me, you know, about healing and herbs, and you know, your lips is all dry and crusty, your teeth is crusty ass yellow, your armpits smell like you got an onion in a motherfucking headlock, but you want to sit here and lecture me on healing and diamond. Please. Ain't trying to hear that shit. All right. Let's continue on. Why does the devil teach that? This mystery God, the adversary, because he desires to make slaves out of all he can so that he can rob them and live in luxury. But brings rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. They continue daily to teach the 85%. All this that he sees, such as rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes, are caused by a mystery God that no one will be able to see until he dies. And I've always bring up the point. You know what the bottom line is? A lot of us come on different spiritual paths because we're trying to understand the mysteries of death. I did a video a while back called Demystifying Death, taking the spookism out of it. Be honest. You wherever you're at today, you might be on this path today. Think of some of your previous paths. One of your motivating factors of being on some spiritual path was understanding this thing called death. How did we get here? Where do we go? What happens to us when we die? And what is the exact process? Well, I got a news flash for you. There's your answer right there. You're not going to know exactly what happens until that moment comes. Yes, there's theories. Well, if you go into the coming forth, I get it. You go into Tibetan Book of the Dead. There was many ways cultures theorized this. Many rituals and ceremonies that symbolized it. Now, were some of these individuals, quote unquote, in tune with a higher power and received messages and divine communications? I'm sure. So I'm not saying there is no substance or reality to it, but it's not a reality to you until you raise yourself up to that reality. So if you had some personal spiritual experience, it's personal, it's subjective, that's great. You may not be able to convince everybody else of it, but that's fine. But I'm saying as a whole, most people have not. And they would have to be real with themselves. They really don't know. All right. All right. He will never be able to come back or tell the living whether he lied or not. For the dead are never known to return from the grave because in all history of Islam, has never revealed anything to anyone returning from a physical death. But there's a chance from a mental death, because the lost and found were once mentally dead, and many of them have recovered from it, right? But they were not physically dead, only mentally, right? I did a video a while back called The First Death. You must be resurrected mentally first. You must die that first death. What's that first death? That existence that was falsely given to you from the time you proceeded from your mother's womb. You were spoon-fed and indoctrinated from the very beginning of your existence until you, quote unquote, at whatever period you came and felt you woke up, right? But remember, there's a lot of that trauma and psychology still embedded in the subconscious mind. It's not going to go away in a matter of a couple of years, because a couple of years ago you got on some conscious path, and now all of a sudden you think it's all wiped out of your DNA. You think it's all wiped out of your subconscious mind, and you think it has no impact or effect on your mind. You're fooling yourself, because you're going to find you could be on this path for years, and every now and then it seeps out, but you're able to catch it. There's some that never catch it, right? They still get stuck like Chuck, right? All right. Let's go to lesson 14. Who are the 85%? They are the uncivilized people, poison animal eaters, slave of a mental death and power, people who do not know the true and living God is or their origin in the world, who worship something they know not what. People who are easily led in the wrong direction and hard to be led in the right direction. That's the majority of the people on the planet. That's why they're equated to the 85%. That describes pretty much 85% of the people on the planet, right? They're either following something or somebody. They get caught up in what everybody's doing. They're basically a conformist, right? Right? That's what we talk about on this path, not being a conformist, right? Most of your people that they described in this degree, that's most of the people on the planet. They worship a spook god. They are poison animal eaters, meaning people who eat bad fucking food. They don't take care of themselves. They just indulge with no discipline. Now, we indulge on this path, but with discipline, right? Who are the 10%? They're the rich slave makers of the poor, who teach the poor lies to believe that the almighty true and living God is spook and cannot be seen by the physical eye, otherwise known as the bloodsuckers of the poor. These are your politicians, your wealthy elite who use all types of fuckery to control the masses. These are your people that are strategically put in power in society to teach religion and enforce it, right? These are the 10%, the elite, who are trying to control the natural resources and the power on this planet. That's just a simple fact. How do you remove yourself from the equation? Let's get on to the next one. Who are the 5% on this poor part of the planet Earth, right? They are the poor righteous teachers who do not believe in the teaching of the 10%. For they are all wise and who know the true and living God is, and who teach that the almighty true living God is Allah, arm, leg, arm, head, right? Supreme being, black man from Asia, and teach freedom, justice, and equality to all the human families of the planet Earth, everybody. I went over that last week. Otherwise known as civilized people, also a Muslim and Muslim sons. So the 5% is just symbolic of the elite few who have decided to take control of their life, who have decided to govern their own spirituality, not let somebody else dictate to them what truths they should or should not accept, what they should and should not do, how they should live their life or not live their life. See, that's the job of the 10%. And then create all these rules and regulations to govern it. So while you're following all the rules and regulations that the 10% put into practice, they're getting rich. Bloodsuckers of the poor. They're feeding off of that shit. Okay? So there's your breakdown of the 85, the 10, and the 5. Okay? That's where you get this 5% concept from, right? Degree 17, what is the meaning of civilization? One having knowledge, wisdom, understanding, culture, and refinement, and is not a savage and in the pursuit of happiness. Self-explanatory. What is the duty of a civilized person? To teach the uncivilized people who are savages, civilization, righteousness, the knowledge of himself, and the science of everything in life, love, peace, and happiness. You always hear me say on videos, it's not about saving people, but you do have a duty to teach. This is what I'm referring to. This is where I get it from. Your duty is to teach when the time presents itself. It is your job when somebody sincerely comes to you. I'm not talking about go look for people and argue with them and go look for people to get into it with them, and don't let nobody come to you and bait you in stupid debates and arguments. But when there's sincerely, and the uncivilized and civilized just represents a person who is conscious, awake, and is living a righteous life, quote unquote, as opposed to somebody who has no type of organization of their path to self-mastery. That's how I would break it down on this path, and that's how I look at it. So when that person that does not know comes to you, you do have a duty to teach and civilize in regards to that, right? Hold on 1 sec. All right. Okay, so that's kind of self-explanatory. If a civilized person does not perform his duty, what must be done? If a civilized person does not perform his duty, which is teaching civilization to others, he must be punished with a severe punishment. This is, I don't really fully agree with the accuracy of this, but there's symbolism in this. They refer to Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 18. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to skip over that. And they give you a couple of biblical quotes. And that's just them using a spiritual, quote unquote, to correlate what that means. I'm not going to read I'm just going to skip that for the sake of time. Degree 20, what is the prescribed law of Islam on the said person of that ability? That civilized are held responsible for the uncivilized, and that they shall be punished by the nation of Islam, right? I look at this from an occult perspective. Again, it's about taking responsibilities for your actions. It's that simple. You can't bitch and complain about a situation if you're not doing nothing about it. It's that simple. So if this quote unquote adversity that people like to use to describe negativity, it's when we say on this path, you're supposed to master the chaos and not let the chaos engulf you, because in that primordial chaos, there's raw energy that one can use and adjust and make fit for that individual to use for a beneficial aspect, as opposed to always looking at it as something destructive that can consume you and destroy you. That's how I look at this degree. You're responsible for your own actions. Whatever bullshit happens, you allow that shit to happen. You're always in control. You're only not in control only when you surrender your divinity. Once you put the divinity in the hands of another or something, that's when you're not in control no more. All right. Who was the founder? Now, this is the Yaqub story. I'm going to show you how I look at it from an occult perspective. I don't take this story literally. You can't, because factually, scientifically, and historically, let's keep it real. Don't match up. Let's not even bullshit. Now, there will people in the conscious, quote unquote, community will debate. I've heard this debate so many times over the years between Muslims and Hebrew Israelites and Kemetic people. They're missing the overall message they should be focusing on, because they're worried about some nonsensical mythological story. But we're going to go over it. I just want to be clear. Who was the founder of unalike attract and unalike repel? An original man who was a scientist by the name of Yaqub, born 20 miles outside of the holy city Mecca in the year 8,400. Not factual. How old was the founder? When Yaqub was 6 years old, while playing with two pieces of steel, you all might have heard this story before, he discovered that one piece had magnetic in it and the other piece did not. He then learned that the piece with the magnetic in it attracted the piece that did not. Then he told his people that when he was old enough, he would create a nation unlike his own that they would rule for 6,000 years. I apply this personally, this degree here. We're naturally attracted to things that are adverse to us, right? Let me give you an example, show you the fuckery. When you read that story in the Bible, where God places Adam and Eve in the Bible and tells them they can fuck with everything in the garden, but don't eat from that tree right there. Let me show you how we are as human beings, our nature. Soon as that God stepped off, we're compelled to do the complete opposite. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA because of the type of beings we are. Let me give you another example. Let me dumb it down for you, even more simple. If we were all in this room right here where I'm at right now, say there was 9, 10, 11 of us, let's just say whatever, and I put this box in the center of the room, this gold box, and I had it closed, and I said, hey, man, help yourself to everything in this room. Do whatever you just, that box right there in the middle, don't touch that. I'm going to be back in a couple hours, a couple days, a couple months, couple years. I'm just symbolically you're going to be more curious and compelled to find out what's in that box more than ever. That's what this degree is talking about. We got to understand it is in our nature. But this path teaches you how to be inquisitive and indulge within your own personal reason by way of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and educating yourself. So let me give you an example. Let's talk about it from an occult perspective. If you got a high sex drive, say you like pussy or you like dick, right? You got to be careful that if you're appeasing that sex drive, you don't go all on the deep end, because what? There's diseases out there. You might ingest or combine your DNA with somebody you might not want to swap DNA or fluids with. There's a multitude of reasons, but at the same factor, you might have a high sex drive. So how do I go about a plan? You might be a person that just can't be satisfied with one sex partner, right? So the wise wisdom person, how do I go about that, but stay within my own personal parameters? It is in our, understand this, one of the biggest struggles we face in life, it is in our nature to always want to explore the opposite, the polarity of it. And that's why religion don't work. That's why people struggle in religions, because they're told to just block it out and don't engulf in it. It's evil. Don't be in the world. They think by suppressing it and tossing it to the side is going to make it go away. Pray it away, meditate it away. Look, if you're a freak, you're a freak. If you're not in some shape, form, or fashion, indulging in that desire on some level, you're going to have a hard time. Maybe there's another person who's force-fed not to eat certain foods, and they craving something so bad, but they got to fight and struggle with themselves. Let's use cheesecake. It don't mean you can't eat cheesecake. It just means you don't eat it every day or weekly. It don't mean you can't indulge and have a slice of cheesecake once a month or something. It's not going to fucking kill you. If you want to get spooky and religious, well, you see, you shouldn't eat that because of the process. I understand that. I talk about that shit too. But at the same token, within due reason, right? I'm saying this is what I get out of this degree. I could go more when I'm reading something like this from an occult perspective. And I think this is important because a lot of us were raised and groomed in these ideologies and doctrines and systems and groups and organizations. Be real. You know you were. But now you want to know what's magic? Go back over some of their doctrines and change the shit to suit your spiritual path. That's what a good magician can do. Go back. See, it's easy just to say, oh, I don't want to fuck with that. Leave that shit alone. Right. Leave it alone at the way that they presented it to us. But if you were a real magician and you really had knowledge, power, and wisdom, you'd be able to take this shit and flip the script and make it work for you. Remember, I've been saying something for about a year now. For many different reasons, there will come a time where you must demonstrate, show, and prove your knowledge and power as a magician. Not just talk about it. Well, this is one methodology you can utilize that concept, right? All right. And it goes on to say, what did he promise the people that he would do? That he would make a devil grafted from his own people, which teach them trick knowledge and how to rule his own people for 6,000 years. What was his idea of making the devil? It was predicted of him to make a devil 8,400 years before he was born. So he was born with the determined idea to make a people rule for 6,000 years. How long did it take to make the devil? It took 600 years of grafting or making him from the original man. What year was that? It was in the year 8,400, which means from the present date of his history or Quran, about 2,600 years of the birth of the prophet Musa. I'm going to go through some of this quick. What is the name of the place that the devil was manufactured? Now, understand this. I don't really agree with a lot of this shit here. I think this is a lot of mythology. Remember, this story that you're getting here in a 1 to 40, this is W.F. Muhammad telling this to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Understand that. Because if you understand the history, who W.D. Muhammad was, they believe he was God in the flesh, right? He incarnated in human form and came to the messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Whether you believe that or not, to me, is irrelevant. I don't really focus on any of that, all right? This is the story that he conveyed of how the races came about. Again, can it scientifically, factually, and historically be proven? No. But I'm just presenting it to you so you can see. I don't really indulge in a lot of this because a lot of it to me is religious mythology. I got to keep it 100%. That's just my take. Okay. I focus more, and I'm going to skip a few of these. The 27th degree just talks about what is the name of the place that the devil was manufactured. It goes into Revelations 1:9. I'm going to kind of, skip that. The 28th degree talks about the actual grafting process, how he, used the brown seed and kept grafting, and as he kept grafting, the seed became lighter. He would destroy the dark. To me, this is all. I don't really focus too much on this. Same thing with degrees 29 and 30. You can read them for yourself. I don't want to read all that. I think what's important is degrees 31 to 40, which is actually 91 to 100. Why is it important? Because now it talks about a mindset. That's the more important thing. The goal of this type of ideology is instilling in the individual a certain mindset, right? What are the mental and physical powers of a real devil? Degree 32, the 92nd degree. The mental powers of a real devil is nothing in comparison to the original man. It talks about brain power. And they say we only use an X amount of our brain, right? Okay. Then it goes on to say, it gets into in the 33rd, what is a real devil? 34th degree, and can you reform the devil? What is the exact expiration date of the devil's civilization? 1914, because that's when W.D. Farr came in human flesh. Now, this is more history of NOI. Now, whether you choose to accept it or not, that's entirely up to you. I don't really focus on any of this stuff. But here's a question I've been posing. Get down into the 38th degree of the 1 to 40, which is degree 98, right? Then why did God make the devil? Right? Well, let's read the answer. I don't know if I agree with it, but let's read it. But I'll show you how you can apply it from a cult perspective. To show forth his power that he is all wise and righteous, and that he could make the devil, which is weak and wicked. Give him the power to rule the earth for 6,000 years. Then he would come in one day and destroy the devil without falling a victim to the devil's civilization. Otherwise, he would show forth and prove that Allah is God, always has been and always will be. Right? Now, I bring this up because you can look at that on the surface. So you got all these people in all these conscious circles telling you, I'm God, right? You hear this term. So it's a very trendy thing. I'm a god, I'm a goddess, I'm this, I'm that, I'm supreme. Back in the day in Egypt, we were so superior. This, back in the day, we were this, we were gods, we were goddesses. Well, if the purpose, according to the degree, that it confirms that it's self-created, right? According to this, metaphorically, we created the devil. I've been asking the question for years. What was the purpose of God creating the devil? Especially if you belong to some black conscious group and you believe all the prophets are black and that God is a black God and his people are the Israelites who are black, or whatever concept if you fall in line with any of them ideologies, my question to you is, what was the purpose of this black God creating this so-called devil? Because all the major ideologies teach it. The Hebrew Israelites believe in that bullshit. You understand that the white man's the devil. All these ideologies teach it, and it's religious and biblical. My question is, would that, and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. You got to be able to really tell me that I'm wrong here. Would it not be true to say the very God that you're trying to get people to worship and conform to is the very God that's responsible for your problem in the first place? Because if you believe in the ideology that you believe in a system that God is omnipotent and omniscient and all that shit, if you believe that nonsense, okay, then you also have to accept the fact that he is responsible for this adversary that you call the devil. And this adversary that you give more power to, this religious, mythological concept of some devil you believe in your mind, is holding you back. That's a bunch of bullshit. It only has as much power and as life as you give it. Okay? So at one hand, you're telling me I'm a god and I'm a goddess and I'm this, and back in Egypt we were this. But then on the other hand, you're telling me there's this race called white people that are keeping us suppressed. Well, when does the power of God come out? Or is there more to this story? That's all I'm trying to say. Because this don't make no sense to me. I'll be honest with you. Because I would have to question, if you're telling me this is the truth. The God of the Bible is a blah, 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 blah. If that's the truth, you would have to explain to me, well, we're in this mess because of that same God. Well, here's something, it makes it clear in the Bible. Okay, if you want to use that. Go to the 45th chapter of Isaiah. You can open it up while I'm right here online. Go to the 7th verse. And it says, and I quote, I am the Lord your God, right? That's how it starts. So we know who's speaking here. I've seen people try to buck dance around this quote, Christians, tap dance, do the mud foot. Because when you present them with something in plain, simple fucking English, they want to deny it. It clearly says there, I am the Lord your God. I create the light. I create the darkness. I create good and I create evil. I, the Lord God, do all these things. Somebody please tell me what God we're talking about in that particular quote. Where religious people try to separate this good and bad shit, this God and devil concept. We don't do that on this path. That's why I said in the video I did on casting the Hermetic Circle and 8-pointed star chaos, I don't believe in banishing any energy when you're doing magic. It's all productive. It all can be utilized. You as the magician just need to know how to utilize it. And you need to understand the concept of what it represents. Now, when I'm reading that quote, again, I said earlier, do we really know or understand the so-called God of the Bible and the Quran? Because right there, he's telling you, he embodies all of that energy, symbolically, I'm speaking. All right? So I got a serious problem with that one. All right? The last two, real simple. Now tell us, would you hope to live to see the day when the gods come and take the devil into hell in the very near future? That's all symbolic religious mythology. And the 40th degree, which is the 100th degree, what will be your reward in regard to the destruction of the devil's civilization? Look at that as just not being a conformist, destroying the things, the old ways about yourself that are holding you back. Until, remember, part of the isolated consciousness of Set and being on this path is by destroying all of those ways about yourself, separating yourself from everything that's had an influence on you, religiously, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. You got to be able to put aside certain aspects of culture and tradition. I'm not saying forget your cultural heritage. I'm not saying to completely abandon your tradition. What I am saying is when you're working greater black magic, that stuff got to be left at the door. Because when you're working with the power of your subjective realm, none of that exists. There's no limitations. There's no rules. There's no parameters. If you know how to do GBM or greater black magic, you understand it. If what I'm saying is not making sense to you, then you just don't understand it. Okay? Let's continue. That completes the 100 of the 120. The last 20 is simply the actual and solar facts, which they're really short. I'll get into that in a second. I'm not going to go through them all. You can read them for yourself. It's basic science, right? Degrees 1 to 13. There's actually 122, but it's a whole nother time. Actual facts, it's stuff the Pacific Ocean, 68,634 square miles. The Atlantic Ocean covers 41,300,000. That's it. It's giving you all the different oceans, the deserts, etc. Solar facts is giving you the exact amount of miles that each planet is from the sun. That's it. That completes your 120. All right. The last thing I want to focus on, and I'm going to go take some questions. I know this went a little bit longer. Last thing I'm going to do on this is the universal flag, right? You see this here. You're familiar. You see that's the icon I put up for this video. You saw it as the photo. Let's break that down real quick. And I told you when you really look at this star, it's got 8 points. If you remove that, we're going to talk about that. That's chaos. It's all engulfed in chaos, baby. All you got to do is look at it. And when we see symbolically in the degrees, what that represents, you'll understand it better. Everything is engulfed in chaos, or the primordial source or energy. Watch this. The universal flag of the 5%, right, consists of the sun, right? See the sun there? I know it might be hard to see. The 7, moon, and star. This shows the universal state of being symbolic to earth, man, woman, and child, right? The 7 represents God. That's why you see the 7. Yes, you can go back into religious theology. 7 symbolizes 7 days of creation, completion, right? The black man in the earth and the sun in the universe. That's what the sun represents on the flag. It stands in position to show man entering the womb of equality, the true woman. Now, that's why you see the crescent moon, which represents the female. Not only does she represent the earth, she represents the moon. But what happens, right? They say symbolically, when the woman is born, it faces this way because the belly is protruded. But then when it goes in, wow, we're going to read. It's symbolic. Don't get caught up in the literal shit of it. All right. The equality of the woman, wisdom. The star represents the understanding of God and the wisdom's unity. You'll hear in the nation, they refer to the females as wisdom. That's your wisdom. Here's why. Okay. The 5 points of the star shows that it possesses God's divine understanding, giving it power of elevation to the supreme guidance of the universe, which is the mind. Now we're back how I look at this on the flag when I see that symbolism. All is mental, mental is all. All things in the universe is mental. Everything has its point of reference in the mind. Everything you bring into existence has its point of origin in the mind. When you refer to the Egyptian text of Torah, thinking himself into existence, what does that mean? Right? Think about it, right? Okay, giving it power of elevation to the supreme guidance of the universe, which is the mind. When you add 7 and 5, right? That's 12, right? When you do the math on the math, what's number 1? Knowledge. Number 2 is wisdom. So you get knowledge, wisdom, right? Remember I said the mathematics is a language that speaks to the conscious mind. It's a language, not just a verbal language. It's a language that communicates constantly to the mind. Like I said, today's build and destroy, right? Today's the 8th. We're in the knowledge month, right? In the year, we're in what? Wisdom, what? Cipher, knowledge, born, right? What does that communicate and convey to your mind? What science and wisdom do you get out of it? Because in order to show your knowledge, right, you must do the wisdom on it. And once somebody acknowledges that wisdom, then it's born, right? And so this is the year of making your knowledge born, right? Cipher, knowledge, born. And what's before it? The wisdom. Now we can get into the numerology of this shit, because we could be here all night talking about that. And if you don't think that this is a cult and has alchemy all over it, then you're not understanding this. Okay. So you get knowledge, wisdom, 12, and you add on wisdom, you'll see God's knowledge being born to the culture, which advocates truth and righteousness, for within truth is power of God's understanding. This is why the star is the understanding and has 5 points, right? The actual star. All right. And I'll show you. I don't know if you can see it. It's not talking about the points on the outside. We're going to get to that next. All right. On the 5 points in our flag represents the universal builder. And within each point, you have a light side and a dark side. This is only showing and proving the original 16 shades of black. 8 shades of black, 8 shades of yellow. And it's talking about the different races and people. Everybody in the family of shades of yellow, brown, and black. When I said on the last video, you'll find that people that are members of the nation of gods and earth, I know some that are from complete Middle Eastern descent. Japanese is a video that a law school put up with some brothers from Japan that visited a law school in Mecca, and they were Japanese. Anybody that ties into the melanated family that has melanated blood running through their DNA is considered part of the original man. That's one of the things that attracted to me. It don't mean when you look at somebody that's Japanese or Asian, Black, or Latino that could be fair skinned. They're not proclaiming that they're the original dark skinned African, but they are acknowledging their connection to the bloodline. That's what makes them part of these teachings. And you don't even have to, because remember, this applies to all the human families on the planet, but I'm trying to give you both perspectives of it so you can see it, right? So that's what the points represent. There are 4 long points and 4 short points. The distance from the short point to the long point is 45 times 8 degrees, times 8. And what does that give you? 360, right? Showing that our flag is complete within its culture. The distance between the long points are 90 degrees, showing that Islam is born, right? Science of the flag, right? So you got the sun, which represents God in the universe, right? You have the 7, which represents God or Allah on earth, man. You have the moon, which represents the wisdom, the female, and the star, which represents the child, sun, moon, and star, right? You hear that term all the time. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Zigzag, zig, the last letter in the alphabet, Z, right? This is how you correlate the alphabet and the mathematics. I'm giving you some examples. There's many ways to do it, but I'm trying to show you it's very occult in origin, nature, and energy. All right. That pretty much completes that build. I'm going to go now through the chat. So just to review, and if you are watching this video and you didn't see last week's, you probably want to go back and watch last week. We did the first 60 degrees last week. We did the 1 to 10 student enrollment, and we followed that up with the Muslim C lesson, 1 to 36. And then we did the Lost and Found 1 to 14. All right. This week, we did the 1 to 40, the actual and solar facts, and the universal flag. So if you want to break down, when this one uploads, you got 2 videos that you can refer to. And these are good building points you can build. You understand? So when somebody now asks you, how do you see today's mathematics, God? You're going to have a whole different perspective now, right? And that's the point. All right. I'm going to scroll up. I will start from the beginning. So if you recently typed in a question, just be patient. I will get down there. Now's the time to type your questions. If you haven't, I'm going to go through the questions and then wrap it up. All right. Peace, Stuff Dog 69. I think I greeted some of you guys already. Myve, Yvette, Debo, Wacky J. Peace, fam. All right. What else we got? I hope y'all got some questions on this. Sister Akoa, peace. El Sheba Sekhmet, peace. Yeah, and this is a good comment by Stuff Dog earlier when I was talking about this whole Baphomet shit, okay? And Lucifer and Luciferianism. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality. When melanated people hear about this stuff, their mind goes to Spookyville, okay? We need to start educating ourselves on what this really represents, okay? We need to really get a thorough understanding rather than let somebody dictate to us and instill in our minds what it represents. Because all the shit you're going to pull up on the surface is spooky and scary. If you Google it, or a whole bunch of conspiracy religious rhetoric comes up. There's many good people that have put out more factual information. Make sure you thoroughly research the topic. But you got all this stuff going on the internet now. I mentioned in a few videos back, the young dude that runs his mouth all the time, Young Pharaoh, and Alim Bey, and they're now, he's trying to correct it. This one attacked Bobby Hemmett. And look, my take is on this, and I want to make this clear. I want to make this point clear. All right. I don't agree with everything that Bobby Hemmett teaches, but I'd be damned if I get on a video and just start going off. Look, anybody has a right to scrutinize any information they want. That's their right. But there's a way you go about doing it. Do I think you need to just go on there outright, bashing somebody for no reason? I don't think. Because remember, these are elders. They paved the way for us. Whether you like them all or not, you don't, because I don't agree with all of them. But my question is, when you're busy attacking them and what they did, you need to ask yourself, what is it you're doing before you start attacking them? So there's common sense that governs this shit. All right. All right, what else we got? All right, peace, brother Duma. Ruth Ellen, are you a Freemason? Yes, I am. Been a Mason for many years. I belong to Lodge 236 in Boynton Beach, Florida. I keep my membership active, but I don't really participate like that anymore. I pretty much got out of what I can get out of it. I will occasionally attend, but being a Mason is only so far you can go. So yes, I did do what they call the Blue House, which are your first 3 degrees of Masonry, which is the Entered Apprentice, Fellcraft, Master Mason degree. After that, if you continue your Masonic journey, because I keep telling brothers, you only get the substitute word, even on the Master Mason degree. That is not the word of a Master Mason. Okay. It is not Tubal Cain or Maha Bone. I know brothers would like to think it is. That's just to throw you off. Trust me when I tell you. If you decide to go the 2 paths, the Scottish and the York Rite, which I did do those, the York Rite deals more with Hebrew mysticism, in my opinion, and Scottish Rite, the 33 degrees of the Scottish Rite, get more intense with alchemy, a lot of esoteric concepts, metaphysics. I found that to be a little bit more Luciferian in nature or enlightening. Okay, when I say Luciferian, okay, I'm not talking about Beyonce and Jay-Z, Luciferian on the internet, giving the finger symbol sign. I don't subscribe to all that fucking rhetoric and conspiracy theory. Jay-Z and Beyonce are not in the Illuminati. Trust me when I tell you. Okay? Trust me when I tell you. If you want to believe that nonsensical bullshit, then you might as well believe in Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. I know how people can run with it. I've seen all the conspiracy videos. I've seen all the slow-mo videos. Look what he's doing. Look what he's saying. Look, some of them are playing mind-fuckery games on you because you're feeding into it. That's what they want you to do. But anyway, so yes, to simply answer the question, yes, I am. Something I had started years back, but again, I am not active like I used to be years ago. My membership, yes. Me on a regular, no. But once a Mason, always a Mason. You're always considered a brother, even if you don't keep your membership active. But I do that for a reason, because I'm able to travel and go in certain circles. Okay. So yes, I am. And Maive answered that for me. Thank you. And I guess that answers Todd's question. Yes. All right. What else we got? And I also am a Rosicrucian, 10th degree. Ruth Ellen. Okay, that's a good thing. That's fine. That's a good comment. I'm following Masonic principles, but I'm not from a Masonic background. You're basically doing what my intent was with these degrees here. That's how we got to start applying our magic on this path. I said earlier, I'm glad, and again, I said that not knowing that your comment was there, but that's a great thing for me to see and hear. Why? Because as I said, with the 120, my purpose to doing this was not to convert you over to be a 5%. That's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is how you can look at it as a god or a goddess, adept, a master, whatever you want to call yourself, and utilize it, as you said here. You're utilizing the principles in some shape, form, or fashion for some type of spiritual growth. That's magic. I'm trying to get people to understand there's more to magic than just going in front of your altar and doing rituals and spells. That's part of it, because I love that part of it. I'm more into the more ancient, traditional, full-blown practitioner of magic. I like the whole psychodrama shit, the whole 9. If you guys have seen me post some of the videos from the rituals, that's what we do with the rituals. Black robes, Baphomet pendants, black candles, skulls, because the symbolicism and the ambiance of what it represents, right? I'm not for all the spooky. If you're scared of that stuff, you probably don't want to come to any of the rituals we do, because all that stuff is there in intense form. And some people get thrown back by it for the first time when they come. Trust me when I tell you. But then it's funny after they come a few times how they embrace it. And all of a sudden the fear turns into this pure feeling of divine love is the best way I can describe it. So that's a good thing that you do that. So however you're using the Masonic principles, if you're growing from it in whatever shape, form, or fashion that's working for you, whether it's mentally, emotionally, whatever, that's an awesome thing. That's magic. All right. Regina Green, peace and blessings to you. Oni, what's going on? See you in a minute. All right. All right. So I guess Ruth commented earlier, going to rewatch this as I need to know what level I was initiated in. Ego death. Okay. Askari King, isn't the concept of poor righteous teaching from the 5%ers though? Okay, I guess you came in earlier. That was at 7:54. I think if you're still here, being 9:21, I think the material covered that. Yes, that's what this video is about. But again, if you came in late, I want to make it clear, like I did in last week's video. This video was looking at the 120 of the 5% nation of gods and earths from an occult perspective. And when I went over to poor righteous teachers, how most people that may not, and I'm not talking about people on this path, how most people may look at that concept quite simply is, I've heard debates in conscious circles, oh, you shouldn't call yourself poor righteous to a 5%. They're not saying that they're physically poor. That term was given to them because the knowledge came to them to the poorest part of the planet, which was America. That's all that means. But yes, it is a 5% concept. All right. That's right. All being born to understanding. And Mandela Born, don't forget to update me on the stuff that we, that you got to work on. I know. Still, you got time, but all right. What else we got? All right. Ruth Allen says this is awesome content, very informed. I appreciate that. And again, if you didn't see the first video, if you want the full breakdown of the degrees prior to this, check out the other ones. All right, what else we got? Be like water, Brother Beniti. Are there any elements of Luciferianism in speculative masonry? That's a very good question. Now, I touched on this a little bit in the past. I think. All right, remember, let's first talk about a speculative and an operative Mason. Let's understand that first for maybe people that are following and don't really understand that concept. And not so much maybe for people in the room, but I also, when I'm doing these videos, I also like to take in account when they upload later and there's many new people that stumble across these videos and are not familiar. So when I'm saying that, no, I'm not just saying that for you guys here in the room. I know probably a majority of you are familiar with it. But remember, I'm not just teaching to people here live now. I also keep in mind people that are going to get these videos later down the road. So a speculative and an operative Mason, right? The concept of Mason, we all know what a Mason is, technically, is somebody that actually builds and lays bricks. That would be an operative Mason. Those, when we use the concept in the Masonic Live, it's speculative because we're using that symbolicism, but it means something entirely different. So in speculative masonry, yes, there's a lot, in my opinion, it's going to depend on the individual and how they're perceiving the degrees in masonry. I do now. I noticed it then when I was going through it, but as I go back now and review my degrees, be it in the Blue House, the Red House, Scottish or York Rite, etc., there's, in my opinion, a lot of Luciferianism. Why do I say that? First and foremost, when I go back and I look at the first concept in the Blue House, you look in the East, right? And I've mentioned this a few times in videos. You see an ashlar on both sides of the chair in the East where the worshipful master sits. You see a rough ashlar and you see a smooth ashlar. They tell you in the Masonic lectures after the degrees, and I believe that's the EA degree, that the rough ashlar represents you when you come into the lodge. It represents you, your faults, your weaknesses, things you need to fix and correct about yourself, right? That's the rough ashlar. Your objective when you get to the Master Mason degree is to become the smooth ashlar. So you've smoothed out all the rough stuff about yourself, the bad things about your personality, your character, your nature, your habits. That's very Luciferian in nature. That's about mastering yourself and becoming a god, right? The temple that you're working on in Masonry is yourself. They teach you this, right? Now, I saw something down later about Hiram Abiff. I'll get into that when we get down later to it. So they're teaching you all this stuff about self-mastery, perfecting yourself, getting a thorough understanding of you as an individual, right? And in your connection and relationship they'll correlate it to the symbolic knowledge of the building of Solomon's temple. And the rituals, even when you get to the Master Mason degree, remember. Go ahead, buddy. Even when you get to the Master Mason degree, remember, the 3 degrees symbolize birth, death, and resurrection. You're birthed and born into the lodge on the 1st degree. You die on the 2nd degree, symbolic, and you're resurrected on the 3rd degree. You're raised with the lion's paw. And I did a video back in the summer on Deadpool 2. Very Masonic in nature. If you watch, when he has his moment of resurrection at the end, right? He's pulled through with the lion's paw. Anybody that's gotten raised in a lodge knows what the lion's paw is. That's when you are raised from death to resurrection and you're pulled up. The individual, you're pulled up out of the grave with the lion's paw. What that symbolizes on that degree is you have now come into realization of who and what you really are. You had to go through that. If that is not Luciferian in nature, I don't know what is. Okay? Because that would also be symbolic on this path of self-mastery of Kepera. Self-realization. You go through those degrees to get a thorough understanding about yourself, right? You're put into the darkness and the primordial chaos on the first 3 degrees. You go through them blindfolded, right? And in that darkness and that chaos, right? Close that door, buddy. Close that door. In that darkness and in that chaos, you don't see with these 2 eyes, you see with this eye. And as your eyes kind of just adjust and you get comfortable in the darkness, you kind of get this strange feeling that you are back home. The fear starts to subside because in that darkness, in that silence is where you start to really connect with your real self. And you rely on this, that you start to correlate the sounds, the sights with this and the smells, but you start to register those thoughts. That's the divine God coming out in you when you're doing the degrees. Look, it also teaches you how we have many different voices that speak to us. Let me explain this on this path. The only way we can get the right guidance from the right voices and get the right messages if we learn to silence our minds. Think about that for a minute. You're never going to fully understand this because I bring up the science. There's a science in that silence. You have to be able to understand what it means, what it symbolizes, and what it represents. The only way you're going to get that clear communication is being in that silence. Okay? You must listen. Because when you quiet the mind and you put it in silence, you can now receive the messages. The problem is, look, I always say this, there's an old mystic saying, no wise man, sage, prophet, or mystic ever received a revelation while they were talking, right? So how can you hear the message and the voices if you're constantly talking, right? If you're constantly fighting your real self. Sometimes one must go into that darkness and silence to get revived, rejuvenated, energized. This is very Luciferian in nature. You're doing that in the Masonic Lodge, okay? So, I mean, I can go on. To me, there are many aspects of Luciferianism. But again, having said that, I think a lot of it's going to be on the individual that went through Masonry and their perspective on it. That's my perspective on it. Can somebody have a different perspective on it completely from what I'm saying? Of course they can. But I can only explain it of how I perceived it. I look at the rituals and the degrees. Remember, I always said this, and one of the reasons why we do the rituals here on a monthly basis is the same concept that the Rosicrucian Order, the Masonic Lodge, Order Templi Orientis utilizes, and I'm members of all 3 of them. It leaves a lasting impression on the subconscious mind. The very fact that I can sit here in 2018, 19 and talk about it, and I did it years ago, and I still have a profound effect, and it's left an impression on my mind where I've gotten some growth out of it and can still draw upon it years later, shows that the job it set out to do was effective. And those that come to the rituals here, trust me, it's the same. I use the same methodology. You could have did a ritual here last year and you ain't been back since a year. I guarantee you in some shape, form, or fashion, you're still drawing off the energy of that ritual and using it in a beneficial practice. If you're applying it, you're using it in a beneficial aspect in your daily life. That's the purpose. It's not just some group ceremonial ritual. That's bullshit. It's not no just group traditional ceremonial ritual. It's centered around a specific area of work. And as I said before, where we're at now from where we used to do them the previous year, it's completely different. And those that have been know what I'm talking about. Okay. So that's a very good question. Be like water. Hopefully, I guess that sheds some clarity on it. All right. What else we got? Most people have questions about their religious belief, yet many move forward without finding the answer to their question. Like the degree said, the 85%. Most people have questions, but they don't find the answer to their question. Usually it's fear-based, or they're afraid to ask, or they're afraid what other people might think. That's why I said you got to let go in certain situations of culture and tradition. The way some of us were raised creates that fear. Because in certain cultures and traditions, you're taught certain things. You can't question certain things. You're supposed to act a certain way. You can do this, but you can't do that. In order to really get on this path and master it, you must let all that shit go. When it comes to doing this, it doesn't mean, I'm not saying if you're Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban, Japanese, whatever your ethnicity and cultures, I'm not saying to abandon it, because that's part of your heritage, your blood. The food, the culture, the music, that's all stuff that I love about my culture. I would never give that up. But I know when to put that aside. When it comes on this path, that stuff is a non-factor. If I let that, shift over to this and influence what I do here, it's going to limit me. Because now I'm going to be making decisions on impulse based on traditions and faith and concepts that are not reality. So I know when I'm working greater black magic and tapping into the subjective realm, that stuff is illusionary. It doesn't exist. It can actually hinder you and hold you back. So what I am saying is when you're really trying to study and master something, you got to put all the illusions aside. You got to put all the titles and restrictions aside that were given to us from birth. You understand? Because it can hinder your growth and your magic. And that's why I was saying in the beginning of the video, all this shit about we all got to come together and unite, kumbaya, and all that's all bullshit. The quicker you learn on this path, and as you go further down this path, and I think I touched on this a little bit last week, you'll find that holy shit, it's just me. It's been me from all along from day one. I created all the illusions. Yeah, I'm not saying you ain't got friends, you ain't got family, people around you. But at the end of the day, when it's you in that silence and darkness and just that inner voice, you start to really realize, holy shit, it's really just fucking me. And the quicker you realize that, the quicker you will grow. And then also what comes with that understanding is you'll be able to accomplish anything you want to accomplish. Because when you remove the external distractions and the illusions, by the way, that was self-created, you'll be able to get growth, results, etc. And a lot of these occult orders, esoteric groups, fraternities and sororities such as Masonry, etc., that's what they're trying to point you in that direction. It does, in my opinion, because I've found in my experience, whether it's Masonry, OTO, I find most people that are on the left-hand path to self-mastery, a lot of them have some type of background in one or some of those fields because it seems to be the doorway. And I know Masonry was probably the doorway that really pushed me into the occult years back. Okay. It seems like I look at all those orders, OTO, they're like bridges or gateways or doorways, because I know many people on the left-hand path that at some point were either members of the Order Templi Orientis, OTO, or Masonic Lodge. Shit, in one of my orders, one of the high priests that I studied under for years, he's also an active Mason. He's been a Mason for over 30 years, but he's really a left-hand path practitioner. Now, I find in the lodge, I am not going to say any names. I know 2 or 3 individual brothers in my lodge that practice it, but they keep it very discreet. It's not something talked about on the surface. Well, anyway. All right, then Tanisha says, many follow the messages, afraid to stand alone or walk in a different direction. True. All right, what else we got? Alchemy Goddess, OL King. Yes, the Bible was written in Greek, therefore it's written in code. I gravitate to this channel because my dad raised us in the Rosicrucian order, so this is just a refresher. Thank you. Yeah, and the Rosicrucian order, as I said before, what I get out of that still to this day, and I still stay in contact. Matter of fact, a couple of my brothers that are in this channel regularly, that actually, Brother Jack, as you know, he's a Rosicrucian. A couple other brothers that are in the circle. Yes, the Rosicrucian order is based on the mystery teachings of ancient Egypt. And when you get into the temple degrees, you do get a lot of high alchemy science that can be applied. I get a lot out of it on that level. So again, we've got to learn as masters and gods and goddesses to grab, like the sister was saying earlier, how she uses the Masonic principles, but not a Mason. We've got to learn to utilize that skill set. That's what we got to learn to do. That's called taking initiative on your path to self-mastery. So yeah, you get a lot of science. It's just how you apply it and perceive it for self. It was good comment by Tanisha. It's funny how I used to fear scary movies, the so-called devil. Now, again, the word devil. Start getting yourself into the habit of researching the etymology of words. Okay, it just means adversary. And that has root in what English word too, adverse. So it's actually a compliment when somebody calls you a devil, because you're adverse to the conformist mentality, bullshit, and way of thinking. So I don't look at it as the religious concept, even though they might be saying it from a religious concept, but that's faith, belief, and mythology. So the mind fuckery in a lot of this is a play on words. So you got to be careful. That's a good point. Death in graveyards. Now I just laugh about my prior thinking. Bring it on. And let me say this, and I might have mentioned this before on the fast. I know Sister Tanisha personally, right? She stumbled across my channel, contacted me, probably been a year or so ago or more now. And I've done consultation work with her several times. And I'm saying that to say I can see the growth and change, because at the time she first came to me, she was everywhere. Ray Hagen, she dabbled in everything, left religion. And she'll admit it, that I remember, and then working with her for the first several months was tough, because I saw her fighting and trying to get all that religious mentality out of the system. And it's always going to pop up here and there. But I can actually say, if you compared it from back then when I first started talking to her, a year and some change ago, to now, it's like night and day, just by even in the tone of her comment. But I can tell you this firsthand. She's also been here several times and participated in rituals and work. So I'm saying this based on seeing it, not just giving my opinion. I want to make that clear. I'm saying this based on doing consultation work with her. I'm saying this on her traveling here and doing ritualistic work. I can confirm it. And to me, that's the beauty of what the degree said. It is your job and duty to teach somebody that presents themselves and sincerely wants to learn and seek. That's what that means. That's what I get out of that degree when I was reading that degree earlier. And I'm bringing the situation up with Tanisha, who's T. Carter, that you see the comments I'm reading. I can see that example. I'm using that example. So Yes. And she goes on to say, right, we must do the work. Workless equals resultless. And that's true. If you ain't putting in no work, guess what? Guess what, Papacito and Mamacito? You ain't going to get no results. And you know how many times consistency is one of the major reasons why people don't get no fucking results? I'm getting ready to do a video. I'm going to put it up somewhere in between in the next few days. The Gnostic path of Santa Muerte, the Holy Death. I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. I got somebody has sent me some emails, so I'm going to throw it out on the video. I'm gonna do about a 30 or 40 minute video on that. It won't be a live feed. It's gonna be a video I'm gonna shoot sometime through the week, and I'm gonna address that email because the points you bring up, sister, was very good. And it's the way we should look at it on this path, in my opinion. I don't want to get into that now. I'm gonna focus on that in that particular video. I'm gonna get to that sometime this week. But anyway, good comments by Tanisha. All right. Stuffed Dog 69 says, this is the time of self-realization. I want to talk about that. Excellent word. It's important we understand it. If you ain't dealing with your own shit, you're losing. Worrying about the so-called family when the family ain't worried about you. Shit is backwards. That's it. Because bottom line is this, self-realization. The answer's right there in the words. Self-realization leads to the realization of what truth really is. And that's why I said, is there absolute truth or is truth personal? Be careful before you answer that question. I hope people say truth is truth and universal truth. That's not true. Because what one perceives as truth, the other can perceive as falsehood. Truth is personal. What brings somebody to the reality of what real truth is to them is the self-realization of that truth. Not because somebody else told you this is what it is. You should accept it for that because I'm fucking Guru Bob whatever, or I'm pastor this, or I'm whatever title I got. So that makes me the sole authority, author, authority, authenticator, authentic. All has root in the same word. They fuck with you with the fuckery of those words. Just because somebody's an author on something don't mean they're the authoritative and they have the authentic tell and say all. I told you when you read books, you should do a research on the author's background, because how the author was raised, if he did have a religion, where he was educated, where he went to school, his race or nationality, where he grew up, all that's going to influence his writing or her writing for that matter. I told you, start studying the etymology of words. There's a little mind fuckery in that. They are the author. Doesn't mean they the authority. So all of those words phonetically are connected. Authority, author, authentic, right? You may not think that's a big deal, but it stamps lasting impressions in your subconscious mind. You don't realize it's feeding the subconscious. Let me give you an example, right? Some shit I used to talk about a while ago on old videos, right? How symbols and concepts communicate to your subconscious mind. Okay? You could be sitting down and watching TV right now and not be hungry. And say Carvel or Baskin Robbins comes on. You correlate the symbol that the company has. You start seeing the image. And now all of a sudden, something triggers in the mind where you're craving ice cream. We all done it. Don't fucking front. It could be food. I know. I'm not going to lie. First thing I mentioned this before. First thing I do when I go back to New York is hit White Castle. Let me show you. Because as I get off my flight at JFK and head to the AirTran to catch the subway to Queens, as I get closer, the White Castle image becomes clearer in the mind. And here's the fucked up part. As that becomes clear in the mind, I can start tasting it. Okay? I know you're probably tripping out. Why the fuck am I using White Castle? But I'm just trying to give you a metaphor. Yes, I love White Castle. Fuck that. Only time I get to eat it, I might eat it 2 or 3 times a motherfucking year. I might eat it. But I'm just going to show you how the symbols and the concepts and the words communicate messages to the subconscious mind constantly. It's constantly happening. Why do you think sport teams have logos? Right? Because you could see the logo of a sports team with no words, but you automatically convey the team's name in words. If I see the NY on a New York Giants helmet, automatically I see the NY and I think New York Giants. If I see the 2 eagle wings on an eagle, I think Philadelphia Eagles. right? My beloved Florida Panthers. If I see that symbol right there, I know it's the Florida Panthers. If I see this symbol right here, it conveys a multitude of words simultaneously. It represents the 5% nation of gods on earth and so much more. All those different symbols. There's no physical words there, right? But when you look at it, the messages are now start to run through the mind. I'm trying to tell you. Understand and I'm also going to do something soon on what, for lack of a better word, symbolically, the unseen and seen world. I'm going to do something connected to mantras and chants. And this will be good because this is an area of spirituality and magic, in my opinion, that you can grow in a very short period of time. But there are unseen energies and seen energies. There's stuff at play here you don't see with the naked eye until you start training yourself to see it. And you might say, no, that don't affect me. That even shows me more that you're clueless to what's going on. I said unseen and seen. I'm not talking about the things that you are aware that affects you. We all should be, I hope, aware of some things that affect us. I'm talking about the things that you are not aware of that affect you. That's the purpose of getting on this path, understanding and uncovering those things about yourself that you're not aware of. It's easy to figure out the shit you are conscious of and the shit you do good and the shit you pat yourself on the back. That's all gravy. But it's hard to uncover the things that might be stumbling blocks on your path. I mean, you understand? But yes. But a good comment by Stuffed Dog. Yes, and when I was talking about ignorance earlier, Tanisha commented, most people don't even recognize their own ignorance. Again, phonetics of the word. The word ignorance has root in what English word? To ignore, right? How come we don't catch this stuff sometimes? It's so basic. When you're saying ignorance, what does ignorance mean? Somebody who ignores the truth. Somebody who ignores the reality of things about themselves. Ignorance, ignore. And that's why I said most people who respond out of fear and ignorance, that's the reason why they respond, because they ignore what's being presented to them. They ignore the facts. They'll ignore the evidence. They'll ignore the basic general information that's right in front of them, be it science or math or just common fucking sense. So somebody who's ignorant ignores the reality of the truth. And whether that truth is personal for them or just, remember, there's common sense truth and then there's deeper. That's why I said truth has different levels and layers to it. But again, we got to start training ourselves to understand the etymology and the phonetics of words, because it constantly leaves a lasting effect and an impression on the subconscious mind. Because when you're saying ignorance, this person's ignorant. You're saying that they just ignore everything. They're not trying to hear shit. All right. Stuffed Dog says, plus that shit is African. We American, we need to build a new paradigm. Stop looking backwards. Today is the only thing that matters. Looking towards some future keep you from dealing with today. And one thing that's unique, and I'm glad you bring it up. I always say this in reference to African spiritual systems. Why one of the main reasons I love to practice voodoo, hoodoo, because we tend to get caught up in this go back to Africa shit. And I'm ancient Egyptian, and we act as if we're not Americanized, as if we weren't born and raised in here. And we are influenced by American culture. I'm not going to get into all the politics of it and what's right and wrong. But to me, that's all. Again, I'm not on that vibe. Don't waste your time with me on that vibe. If you don't like anything about America, American culture, way of life, and it's all the white man stuff and it's all then just get on a motherfucking plane and go back to Africa. Matter of fact, contact me and I'll help you buy the ticket, because then we get rid of one ignorant asshole and it leaves more room and space for us. All right, so let me make this clear. I'm born and raised here in America, even though my ancestry and my parents are not from here, but I'm born and raised here. I ain't trying to go nowhere else. Let me establish that shit. We have a rich spiritual tradition, and I'm not saying to get caught up in the tradition of it, but we have a rich spiritual and magical system on the soil of this planet. And the voodoo hoodoo tradition, which by way of Africa has its roots on a soil here in America via New Orleans, is a beautiful system because you don't have to be a conformist to any one particular system to practice it. It incorporates a multitude of African spiritual systems. Let's not act like we ain't got a heritage here. Most Negroes cry and go back to Africa. If they're so Americanized, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know what it would be like to go live somewhere without cable and internet, and and they're not going to try to give all that shit up. I'm not talking to. They think as if you go to some places in Africa. Some places in Africa are more highly technologically advanced than here in America. Everybody thinks like, I don't know what it is with some people, like everywhere in Africa is just a beautiful abundance in nature and animals, and it's very primitive. Hell no, there's more places more technologically advanced and more culturally and technologically advanced than America is. I don't know where people get this shit from. So what do you think? You're going to go there and what, escape all your delusional bullshit that you're running from here? Okay? We have a rich Native American history here. Okay? Because let's look at it this way. If everybody said right now that's not America, go back to where you came from, guess what? Majority of us wouldn't be here. Okay? We understand that not everybody came over via a slave ship. And I know that when I look at my ancestors, when dealing with the Moors and the Native Americans and coming through that part of the country, I already know. I don't link into that. I'm not saying, I won't get into that because I know they debate that bullshit on the internet. Was there look, there was many that came here via slave trade, but not everybody did. I would refer to you, and me, in my opinion, one of the greatest authors and teachers on that was Ivan Van Sertima. Go pull up any of his books, works, lectures on YouTube. And I've always said this in the past. I don't think Ivan Van Sertima gets the props he deserves because he was married to a white woman. Why that should matter, I don't know why. Doesn't change the information he was teaching. But if you really want to understand true American history, we got to stop acting like there's nothing great about where we're at now. See, I don't live my life I want to go back to Egypt and Africa. I acknowledge it. I understand it as the originators of all civilization and knowledge. That's all facts. I understand it's a beautiful place to go visit and connect with, but I tell you what, I'm happy to get the fuck back here when I'm back here. I don't care what anybody says. Okay, I'm not on that go back to Africa trip. We need down with America and Babylon. Look, it's as simple as if you don't like it, just get a ticket, go now. It's that simple. We done. Stop talking about it. That's all. Good point. But America has abundance. They just promote the abundance of everywhere else. True indeed. They want the gods on this plane or American to look elsewhere to awaken our mental power on this land. Mind is all there is. And that's what I was just talking about. All those kind. And that's why we got to stop looking. Look, you can go to Missouri, much Native American history there. I've been to Ocmulgee Mound in Macon, Georgia, I visited the funeral mounds there several times. I actually was just up there not just up there. I was up there last spring. I visited the ritual temple, which they preserved and kept, the funerary mounds, walked the whole trails, and that Ocmulgee mound in Macon, Georgia. It's a National Historic Landmark, right? You will see the rich history of the Mississippians, the Choctaw, the Yamasee, the Washita. All of them came through that whole region from Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, on down into Florida. And down here, I mentioned on the last video, the Seminoles have a whole reservation here when you get right into the southern part of Fort Lauderdale. They own the Seminole Hard Rock Casino. It's owned by the Seminoles. And they have that right across from it is the whole Seminole Reservation. There's a rich history on the soil. We act as if it's not here because that's another mind fuckery trick. Let's focus on everywhere else, Egypt and Africa, just like Stuff Dog said, and not focus on what's right in front of us. I know when I go and I've been to Ocmulgee Mound probably 4 or 5 times more. Okay. I know every time I go, I have a profound spiritual experience when I go there. I could feel the energy, especially when I go on the ritual mound and the funerary where they did the funerals, or where they had the rituals when a person made the transition. I can hear the voice of the Native American ancestors when I'm there. I can feel the energy, and just in the wind alone, I don't want to sound fluffy, but it's a different wind that blows when you're up there. That's the best way I could describe it. So nobody can tell me that this energy isn't all around us. It's here in Florida. I can feel it. I know being here, and this is why I say, really, cold climate, that's a whole nother story. We'll get into that another time. That'll sidetrack and take too much time right now. But good points. Let me try to get through the rest of this. T. Carter, 1%. John D. Rockefeller is the second wealthiest figure of the modern period. Net worth $336 billion. Now go up to John D. Rockefeller and ask him, do you accept Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior? You think John D. Rockefeller or anybody with that, even when Bill Gates was alive, do you think Bill fucking Gates gave two flying shits about debate and religion? Like I said, Ted Turner, none of them care about that shit because one of the first things they realized once they separated themselves from those weak mental doctrines that created blockages and stagnations, that's when they took off. Okay? They don't care nothing about none of that shit. They got to being where they got to be because they became realists, right? They became people that didn't deal with the fairy tales and the myths. Okay? All right. Duma says, thank you, bro. Brother B on the PRT degree. Yeah, no doubt. And about the mystery God degree stuff, though. No doubt. Yeah. I mean, look, we don't deal, even on this path. That's why I wanted to do the breakdown of these degrees. We don't deal with a mystery God on this path to self-mastery. The key in that sentence, I keep saying over and over, is self-mastery, right? And when we did the first video, when a 5%er says they practice Islam, they're not talking about traditional Orthodox Islam, wearing a jalibiyah, a taqiyya, or emmer, and prostrating, making sujda 5 to 7 times a day, or making salat. That's not what they mean when they say their way of life is their culture and their way of life is Islam. They break it down as I, self, Lord, and master. And what did it say in the degrees in the 1 to 14? How old is Islam? Islam is older than the sun and moon and stars. It has no birth record, said birth record. What's the said birth record of the Nation of Islam? There is no said birth record. Because when you hear that, if you're correlating it to Orthodox Islam, yes, Orthodox Islam has a birth record. Just barely over 1,400 years ago. That's not the question being asked in the degrees. Because Islam means I, self, Lord, and master. It's a way of life. It's a way of thinking. It's a mentality. We would correlate that on this path to being a god or a goddess. Path of self-mastery. It's that simple. So, yes, we shun the mystery God, even on this path. It's not a reality. The adept always understands they're on their axis at all times, and he or she is at the center of their universe, and they are controlling everything that exists in their universe. I should say universes or multiverses. Because when you get into the subjective aspect of now you're dealing with a multitude of universes or multiverses, right? As they say in quantum physics. So that's why I say once you start tapping into the subjective, all of that shit ceases to exist. All of that tradition, theology, philosophy, doctrines, dogmas, that shit is out the window. It don't fucking exist no more. Trust me. Trust me when I tell you. You have to learn to toss that shit to the side. Quicker you learn, the better off you're going to be. Trust me when I tell you. You'll find out the hard way, but trust me when I tell you. All right, whatever we say. And then stuff though goes on to say, I ain't never seen meaning the mystery God. I never seen him bring nobody nothing. How many Christians on the planet and nobody ever got nothing from God personally? Yeah, it is deep because you know why it's deep? Because religion teaches people to accept poverty. Why? Because there's pie in the sky waiting for them when they die, right? How many religious people, and it could have been people in your family that you knew then and might even know now that, I mean, they'll say stupid shit like, yeah, I might not have nothing, but I got the good Lord. And when I go, I know I'm going to have he got a place prepared for me and good. Come on, man. That is poverty, poor person's way of thinking. That's what religion does. Because I said earlier, our great-grandparents were told Jesus was coming. They gone dead. Never happened. Our grandparents were told gone and dead. Never happened. How many people have predicted the end of the world? How many times has the end of the world been predicted, been wrong? And then they say, well, nobody knows the day and time. He's going to come like a thief in the night. Really? Think so? Well, that's very fucking vague. You understand? That's what I'm trying to say. It indoctrinates you with a weak-minded, poor person's mentality. And I'm not just talking poor financially. I'm talking poor mentally and spiritually, right? It indoctrinates you with a loser, poor person's mentality. It teaches you to wait around for some mystery spook God to do for you. Not only are you waiting around to do for you in the now, you're also waiting for the spook and mystery card to come in the later. And then guess what? You're going to transition, be dead and gone. Your children's children are going to transition, be dead and gone. And there's still going to be some stupid jackass presenting the same concept. He's a coming. Well, I'll tell you what. I ain't going to wait around for nothing and nobody to do shit for me. Okay? I'm going to do it for self. So, yes. It's slave mentality, slave indoctrination. Yes, Stuffed Dog says, be the change you want to be or see. That's what I'm talking about. That's it. It's that simple. All right, let me give you an example. Stop saying you want to do something and just do it. Because when you say shit like, you know what I would like to do? One day, I hate when people say that. You know what I like to do? One day I would like to be real successful and open a business. Or one day I would like to be really successful at martial arts. Or one day I would like to be, that's a poor person mentality. Stop saying one day you would like to. Stop saying, you know what? I'm going to be a master of martial arts, if that's your interest, I'm saying. I'm going to get that BMW 740, whatever, that I so desire. Don't go, you know what? One day I would really like to get a nice BMW. I can tell you you're never going to get it just by the fact that you're saying one day. What did I say earlier? Words stamp lasting impressions on the subconscious mind, whether you're aware of it or not. What you're doing is stamping failure in your subconscious mind every time you say that. I never use that type of language. One day, I hope. You know what I would like to do? Anytime somebody starts talking like that, it's confirmation they have a lot of work to do. They don't understand the power of God that resides with them. They don't understand their connection to these multiverses. They don't understand the power that lies dormant within and how to activate it and get it going again. See, no, you don't use it. You got to start training your mind to use different verbiage, which in turn, as you start using the right verbiage, it leaves a lasting impression on your subconscious mind. So start saying things like, if you don't want to work for nobody no more, say, go in front of your altar and say things like, today, I set out and continue. I will not work for nobody. I will accomplish that goal. I'm using that example. A lot of people say they don't want to work for nobody. I want my own business. Well, start saying it and become it and stop talking about the shit all the time. You understand? We tend to try to talk our way out of everything. That's the problem with all these conscious groups and circles. They're so busy arguing and fighting with each other and attacking each other. What? As I said earlier, they're so busy talking and they're not in that silence listening for the communication. That's the difference between what we do and they do. And we'll sit back watching them laughing our ass off like, look at these motherfuckers. You know how I look at this shit right now and how it looks so comical, and I think to myself, I used to be like that 20 years ago or so, 20 plus years ago. That was me. And I'm so happy and ecstatic not to be one of those motherfuckers anymore. I'm so glad not to be a hotep or a asher, I'm so happy not to be that. I can't even put it into words how great it is to look back and reflect. Grateful on one hand that I got a lot out of the experience and I can utilize that in the now. And also great on another hand that I'm so grateful not to be in that bullshit no more. Because I listen to how ridiculous that shit sounds now. All right? And I think alchemy got us when I was talking about cause and effect. That's really what karma is. Get out of all this spooky shit. If you slap somebody, let me show you. If you harm somebody innocently, something bad can come back. Of course, something bad is gonna come back. If you go slap an old lady, I'm sure if they have a husband, a brother, or uncle, so of course. The effect of that is anybody in your real mind's going to come looking for your ass to slap the shit out of your back. Don't correlate that to no spooky ass shit. Because I know if somebody slapped my wife or my mother when she was alive at the time, or one of my three sisters, I'm coming to look for your ass, and I'm going to slap you with the back of my hand. I'm going to pimp slap your ass in the next week. I ain't even going to slap you with this part of my hand. I'm just saying. That's cause and effect. Don't correlate that to no spooky spiritual shit. Oh, see, if you do that, the law of the universe will come. I can't stand. Why do people got to talk like that too? When they get in a certain mood, they need to sound retarded. You understand what I'm saying? But come on. Yeah, sometimes I found on this path, less is more. Let me say it again. Less is more. Meaning the more simple you make shit, the more you're going to get out of it. Some people just make shit so fucking complicated. Everything is so deep and heavy and spiritual. And sometimes it's just basic fucking common sense. It ain't even that deep. Okay? Mandela Born says it's a humbling thing to really know there is no mystery God. There's no one to blame or help but yourself, but at the same time, it's empowering. That speaks for itself. Death and resurrection played out again in Hiram Abiff. Yes, and I guess that I saw that earlier. I had addressed that, and that's yes. Now understand this. I've had this discussion in Masonic classes. Can a Mason really word verbatim find Hiram Abiff in the Bible? No. You can find Hiram, king of Tyre. Remember, there's two Hirams, even in the Masonic lodge. You got Hiram, king of Tyre, and you got Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff and the three ruffians can be correlated to an ancient Egyptian story. When you go back into the ancient Egyptian text, you will find that story of three ruffians attacking a particular pharaoh. And what it represents, because what does Pharaoh represent? Sitting on the throne. Pharaoh represents an individual who is in a state of godship that rules over his subjects, right? It means to sit on throne and rule as Pharaoh. It's the same thing. This concept and story is where they got the Hiram Abiff story, right? And you go through what Hiram Abiff in the Masonic stories goes through, you go through that in the Masonic degrees. And that's why I said it represents birth, death, and of course, resurrection. And again, if you think you went through the Master Mason degree and stopped there and you got the word of a Master Mason, you didn't. Because I know what's there in the degrees. First, you get the substitute word, as I like to say. They give you the trick word, right? First, right? There's two words you get on the Master Mason degree, right? They tell you that the word is what? I mentioned it earlier. I want you guys to go back and do your research. And there's two words. I give you the one, Mahabon, right? Is that the real password of a Master Mason? Well, obviously, if somebody said yes, they stopped after the Blue House. You don't get that into the later York and Scottish Rite degrees. You're only given the substitute word. It's not Tubal Cain either. Because first you're given that on a deceptive level. I gave you the two words, Tubal Cain, Mahabon. You can read that shit in any Masonic monitor. Okay? One's given as a trick, partially through the third degree, because it's part of the degree. And then when you're raised up via the lion's paw, it's whispered in your ear. The substitute word. Don't get that shit confused. So that's one way I know if somebody's, I'll never give you the actual word, because that's, to me, somebody needs to earn and work their way through a lodge to get that, whether you agree with masonry or not. That's how it's very easy for me to detect how far somebody went masonry. So if they tell me they went through further than the Blue House and they went through the Red House, I'll pull them aside and ask them, what's the real password of a Master Mason? And if they tell me Mahabon or Tubal Cain, I'm going to laugh at their ass. Because that's not what the word is. And I won't ever talk about that openly, because I use that just as a tool so I can see. That's why I did the video a week or so ago, Stop Faking the Funk. You got a lot of people walking around out here, as I said in that video, I'm a Master Mason this, yet you don't know the passwords and grips. If you tell me you're a Rosicrucian, what level? Are you Atrium, Neophyte, or are you a Temple degree? I'm 10th degree, Temple degree. So if you say you're on any of them degrees prior to that, I have a right to ask you to pass K on each degree. So if somebody walks up to me and says, yeah, I'm Temple degree Rosicrucian. What degree, brother or sister? I'm 6th degree. What's the pass key on the 6th degree? If you can't give me that, then you're faking the funk. That's it. Faking the funk. I'm tired of it. I never used to talk about it. I didn't care. But I'm tired of these clowns doing videos saying they were initiated in this and that, giving lectures on masonry, and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Talking about OTO, and they ain't got a clue what they're talking about because they read something in a book. Yeah, I could read books on Thelema and Crowley, but that's not going to tell you what you go through on the Minerval degree, Man of the Earth degree. I can go on and on. That's not going to tell you what you go through in the lodge. Of course, I can read books on Crowley and Thelema and get a general idea and then front and get on camera and try to moose my way through it or do a lecture somewhere in front of an audience in front like I know everything about OTO. Of course. But it's easy for me to just pull somebody aside. Oh, you OTO, what degree? And they all, just like Masonry, have not just a password and sign, they have a pass grip. So I always say, be careful who you're talking to, okay? You don't know who's watching. And I say that to say that's why there should be certain levels of respect for certain things. Because even though you may not take Masonry seriously or Rosicrucian, there are people, that's their life. I know many elders in the Rosicrucian lines. I know two brothers from Barbados. They've been Rosicrucians since they were 12 years old. They're pushing early 80s now. And I sit down sometimes and listen to them build. It blows me the fuck away. The shit that they drop. And they're not left-hand path occult, but the wisdom that those elders got is fucking mind-blowing. And I would never cross the line and disrespect that type of knowledge and wisdom. And you would look at these two elders. They don't wear any symbols, hardly. They don't have nothing on their car. If you would see them out and about in a supermarket or a shop, you would just think they were just regular, ordinary people. That's why I say you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who's listening sometimes. And sometimes you sound like a jackass because you're not listening to yourself talk. So you can get up and do lectures and classes and write books and claim to be a master. That's why I just did the last video. Don't be a jack of all trades, master of nothing. Fortunately, we got a lot of people. They're jack of all trades. They know everything. Yeah, I study. Yeah, I know this. Yeah, I know that. They want to make themselves look so heavy and deep. They study with everything. They're masters of this and that. They jack of all trades, masters of nothing. Because when you really pull them aside and you really build with them, look, those that know me, you've been around me, you know how I do. I will, I'm in a circle. I mean, shit. I'm not saying I would do it to embarrass somebody in a law, because that's stupid. That's childish. But I will pull your ass aside in private because it's been done to me. You know how many times growing up in the Masonic lodge when I was out and about, where, you get young and goofy. I wanted to wear the Masonic baseball cap with the Masonic emblem until brothers started coming up to me and doing this shit and covering my light. And that Prince Hall do that because they deal with a lot of that catechism shit. And I didn't know you had to say, they cover you, and if you don't know what to say, they snatch your hat. They take your shit. So, little key, if a Prince Hall comes up to you, wearing a Masonic baseball cap and they cover your compass, square, and G, they're going to say, what you supposed to say, brother? You're supposed to say, let there be light. And then they move their hands off your hat. There's many other catechism shit I can tell you to come at you with. I didn't know that as a young buck. I'm walking around 19, 20 years old, thinking, oh, wow, yeah, I'm heavy. And I started to realize there's fucking people out here that take this shit serious. Just because it's a joke to you, there's some people that will do bodily harm for this shit, literally. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to front. There are people out there that are like that. You understand? So at least know what you're talking about. Like, I would never wear the universal flag not understanding what it means, because a 5%er will approach you. Hey, brother, or hey, sister, I see you wearing the flag. Happened to me many times. What's the science? You better be able to explain something. That's why I did the video, Stop Faking the Funk. I'm tired of motherfuckers wanting to put on the costumes, claim all the accolades, and they ain't never done shit. They faking the funk, and they're the jack of all trades, masters of nothing. Point blank. I don't give a fuck. Because everything that I talk about, I can stand behind it. You ain't got to agree with it all, because I don't expect you to. That would be completely ridiculous. But I stand strongly behind what I talk about. Not based on just because I like it, but based on experience. All right. So let's not fake the funk, and let's definitely not be jacks of all trades and masters of nothing. That's a recipe for failure on this path. All right. All right. Damn. Give me a second. I did a little skippity skip. All right. Here we go. Yeah, and Stuff Dog's talking about, I gave a verse in Isaiah 45, verse 7. In that verse, the God says, I alone do these things. So God states that no one else is responsible for good and evil. And that was my point. So what kind of God are we talking about in this quote? He says he does good. He says he does evil. So who's responsible for this so-called evil that people are afraid of? You're the same God you're worshiping. That was my point. And that's true. Good point by Al Kim Goddess. This is another good way to look at the God-devil concept. Or two different degrees in each person. Isn't that one of the laws or the principles of Tahuti? When you deal with the doctrine of vibration and polarity, it's just two varying degrees of the same thing. And I keep telling people always will send me, what's a good book to start? What's a good book to start reading to understand this path? And anybody that's contacted me over the years and knows, what do you get? What's the response I give you? I always tell people, get the Kabbalion by the 3 initiates, the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti. Study that shit front to back, up and down, sideways, whatever you need to do to get that to register. That's going to help you so much on this path, and you will continue to draw upon it. Because that's really, when you look at it, that's how you should. They're just varying degrees of the same thing. Yeah, Stuff Dog. Dude worshiping Bobby Hemmett. I love Bobby Hemmett, but young Pharaoh is a great magician. He's pumping all these motherfuckers for their energy. Yeah. Now you got to remember. Let me clarify. When somebody is speaking, and it's a good point. Like I'm speaking right now, so I'm giving out energy. People are feeding off of it. It's the same thing when you're doing a ritual, whether it's individual or this group. The person that's doing the ritual, or the persons that's doing the ritual, they're not just absorbing the energy. They're also being drained of a lot of energy, right? That's a ritual you're talking about. Like young Pharaoh knows that, and how he's doing the ritual and draining the energy, which is a form of vampirism. He knows that video is going to draw attention and get hits and get likes. That's what I'm saying. That's all that shit is really all about, right? But the whole point being is, you understand? He has look, I ain't have no problem with you scrutinizing Bobby Hammett's information. We all have a right to. Was it necessary? Where the magic part comes in, he knows it's going to get certain individuals riled up. Like, oh, fuck that motherfucker. Fuck. My opinion, here's the question I would pose to young Pharaoh. Now, I don't know if most of you are aware of this or not. You might. All right. He always likes to talk shit about, give me a source, point of origin, fact. He was doing that with the Baphomet shit. And as I said in a couple videos back, with Luciferianism and Baphomet, we got to start focusing on the concept and what it represents and not get into all this historical, useless back and forth bullshit, because those are just modern day terms. But that's the whole story for something else. I would ask Pharaoh, young Pharaoh, okay, and I know this, and some of y'all might know this about him, and this is not to bash, I'm just keeping it real. You guys know my background. I'll tell you my background from my beginnings till the present. Don't hide anything. It's funny how when he first came on the scene, if you remember, and I'm going to tell you why I'm saying this, prior to his affiliation with Sarah Sutan Seti, Mr. Everything is so black and cracker this and devil that. Meanwhile, when I look at that young brother, he looks, I don't see a pure black man either. So I don't know why he's always on this cracker this, devil that. When I look at him, I see an Asian man, a China man mixed with black. I see somebody that could pass for Dominican or Latino. But I find it's always these light-skinned brothers that have to profess their blackness all the time. And they always have to attack the white man because it's their lack of insecurity, in my opinion, of their blackness. But that's a whole nother story for something else. But remember when young Pharaoh first came on the scene, what name did he go by? Does anybody remember? This would be my first question with him. Anybody remember? I'm not going to scroll down yet. Maybe somebody typed it in the bottom, and I'll look at the time, so don't cheat. It's 10:20. If you didn't type it before 10:20, you're lying. He went by the name Pharaoh Allah, and that speaks mass confusion to me. I got a problem with that. Why were you calling yourself Pharaoh Allah? Obviously, at that time in his life, he was in a certain ideology that was pseudo. And if his older videos are still up, I mean, I don't know if they are or not. In some of them older videos, he was highly influenced by Dr. York. And he mentions it to an extent. He never says he was a full-fledged Nuwapian. But if you remember, when he was by the name Pharaoh Allah, he was teaching a lot of that spaceship alien pseudo shit that he calls pseudo now, right? He's so quick to call everybody pseudo. He even got ostracized for doing a class that he put up one time. He did all these PowerPoints by some European guy that he was all throughout the PowerPoint presentation. He got ostracized for that. It's funny how all these guys are white people crack, but they're using white people's references and sources. At one point in time, just like all of us were at some point in this path, we were all confused. So he's got to stop acting like, one, you know everything, and at one point you weren't out there, because you were, brother. Because anybody that goes by the name Pharaoh Allah is confused, okay? Because that tells me you're all over the place in several different ideologies. It makes no sense to me. But I would like to hear it out of his mouth one day. Why did you choose that name? Now, of course, now he might moose and give us some bullshit story. I know why, because you was on all that spaceship stuff. You was mixing all that Dr. York type stuff. You understand? So it's just fucked up. Before we're quick to point fingers at other motherfuckers, we need to point the finger at ourselves. You understand? Yeah, it's like Stuff Dog, Bobby Hammett was very familiar with Crowley. Now, one thing I disagreed with Bobby Hammett, and I've expressed this in past videos, his concept on Aloas from the Book of the Law. That was Crowley's personal daemon, as we would say on this path, or his guardian angel. I'm still, to this day, I never had a chance to get it straight from him, but he taught that Aloas was a black man coming back on a spaceship to save black people. His video is still up. You can go pull that video up. Just type in Bobby Hammett Aloas. I don't agree with that. I'm saying that because being third degree in the Order Templi Orientis, being a Thelemaite, as they would say, that's not what the degrees teach. If you understand the Book of the Law and what Crowley taught about Aloas was he referred to Aloas as his guardian angel. He counted Aloas in the pyramids in ancient Egypt. He claims Aloas was the one that communicated to him the Book of the Law. That would be what we would call on this path his personal daemon, or his guardian angel, as he referred to it. So I'm just curious. I heard the video of what he said. I just don't know how true that is. But I can respectfully agree to disagree. I'm not going to get up and do a video. Oh, fuck that motherfucking blah, blah, blah. It's pointless. Let's have an intellectual and intelligent dialogue. Knowing from that intellectual, intelligent dialogue, we can agree to disagree. Period. That's it. Yep. All right. I'm going to have to speed this up. Getting a little late here. Trident 72. Masonry definitely brought some familiarities with getting onto this path rituals. So yes, it does. But the beauty of it is, see, what I focus on, those lesser paths, as I like to call them now, knowing where I'm at now and you know, how much I've changed and what I think I might know. I say think because there's always more to still learn. I look at it as, again, I draw from those examples. It was an experience. It had its beneficial points. So it does, you know, look at the benefits. You know, don't just look at, like, I hate when people go, oh man, if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have done that. I say that too, but also, no. I also look and say, you know what, it was meant for me to experience those things. Look at the flip side. There's two sides to that. All right.
If you had lived, all right, let me show. I don't know why they blocked them. Okay. Oh shit. Wait, say this. Stuffed dog type. If you have lived, you are the devil. Devil lived. Right. The phonetics of the word. There you go. It fucking with us. It's how the words play around your mind. That's what I'm saying. It stamps, communicates. You're not aware of it. Stray Panther 7. Have you read the Great Understanding Plus lessons? Yes, I actually have. I mean, there's a bunch. General Monk. I can go into a bunch of those. I mean, that's probably videos in itself. Yes, I do have pretty much majority of the Plus lessons, which are very hard to get. If you do have them, that's a good thing. But yes, good point too. It's no real truth in a holographic reality. It's about what you say. It's not what anybody else says. That's God shit. That's correct. Here, I'm going to read this message. I know sometimes when you use profanity or something YouTube can't recognize, just so you guys know, it hides the message. It usually if it's profanity, so like Stuffed Dog typed in, he had the word shit in his comment, so it blocked it. But let me read it. It says, man, you're talking about the White Castle. That should happen to me, my wife from Louisville. And then, yeah. So you say, my sister moved. She's in Kentucky. She bought a nice piece of land out there a few years back. I forgot the name of the town, but she's right. She's more closer to the Cincinnati border. And they got White Castles all over there too. So when I go see her out in Kentucky, like I said, she's close to Cincinnati. I hit them joints, man. Like we get the case. Saying when the crew get together in New York, we go get the case. I don't know what it is. It's something about them belly bombers, aka murder burgers, whatever the fuck you want to call them. I don't know what it is, man. It's like, man, it's like crack to a crackhead, man. I mean, you just go shit. I remember when I went up last Thanksgiving, not this Thanksgiving, I went up last Thanksgiving. Before my partner George passed away. I remember. Shit. It was the day after. And we had linked up, we hung out. It was a spot. It's still there. We've been going to this spot pretty much since our last 2 years in high school. And I told you guys probably know at that time when that was going on, when he passed away last year. He was a New York City fireman, so everybody knew him. You know what I mean? He was one of those dudes. We walked into the bar, everybody knew him. I mean, he was just that type of dude. He'd buy you drinks. He had a tab. That's just how he was. But anyway, man, we left the bar that night. I'll never forget. We left there about 2:00. Now, most of y'all know if you grew up in New York or wherever this White Castle, whatever, shit's open 24 hours. Now, mind you, we left the bar after drinking a good bit, and then we hit the White Castle. I mean, we fucking went in there and destroyed a case. When I say we destroyed a case, because, sometimes that alcohol, and it was like ritualistic. And why I say it was ritualistic, because no matter if I ain't see George for a year or so, because we grew up, we went to high school together, except the whole crew, all of us, George, Keith, Brian. If I ain't see them for a while, especially George, it's like we never missed a beat. And as we were sitting there eating the White Castle, it opened, we could reflect on all the different life experiences we had that were connected to moments and events in our life that White Castle was connected to. That's magic. So I got to ask myself, is it just a taste I love a White Castle? Of course. But is there something more ritualistic connected to me? Magic in itself. There's more to it. Just saying, there's more to it. Okay. All right, Stuff though, the mind does not deal with the incomplete thing. It will always complete the circle. So symbolism is a way to control your mind. If you ain't programming your own subconscious mind with your own symbols, you're lost. Self-explanatory. Yup, Africa look like New York. Like I say, man, people act like there's not big congested cities in Africa and all that. Some of that shit is more fucked up than it is here. But that's the Hotepish, yeah, the motherland.
Like, what do you think? As soon as you step off the plane and your foot hits African soil, all your problems dissipate? Come on. First of all, I kicked the reel on that a while back. You better go there with a plan. You ain't going there taking nobody's job. They don't like you over there if you ain't bringing something. If you ain't bringing a skill, a trade, profession, or a business, if you think Africa is the type of system where you're just going to go there and find work, it don't work like that there. They look at that as like you taking food off of their table. Trust me when I tell you. Yeah, Straight Panther, right? Harold and Kumar. Yeah, those movies are funny, man. Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Yeah, man. White Castle's a shit, man. Let me tell you something. It's just the shit. Because like I said, it's so part of the child. The ritualistic part, man, we used to go there after every house parties, basement parties. We used to do, I don't know what they call it now. I think they call it the Dirty Dozens, whatever the fuck they call it. We used to call it snapping. We go there, we already lick it up. We were drinking and chilling all night. We used to have snap contests. That's what we used to call it in New York. We used to snap on each other. Your mom jokes. We used to snap on each other's gear. They used to snap on my nose all the time, call me Eagle Beak, just funny shit. We had one of my friends look like Mr. Bentley from the Jeffersons. He had Bentley head, just what we did back in the day, man. We used to have fun with it, man. All right. I think we are there. All right. Yeah, Duma, your dad from Ghana. So you've been there too. You can confirm what I'm saying. All right, that looks like we're at the end. I know I always say I'm going to keep it to 2 hours and never happens. Appreciate it. But real quick, again, if you need to contact me for any of the things that I was talking about, spiritual consultations, the event of the month, and I got something big that something not big as far as magnitude, but something good. I got something I told you in the beginning of the video that we're getting ready to pop off with. I should have that finished and organized in the next couple of days. So look for that. I'm not going to let the cat out the bag until I get it all lined up and synced. I'm kind of excited about it. So that to come in the near future. So again, if you are interested in pursuing these teachings more, this particular area study, look into it. I'd like to see your feedback, what you get out of it. I would challenge everybody. This is one thing I want to throw out there. Just a little something you can do for yourself to grow. Take a religion, dogma, doctrine, culture that you might not even like or can't stand. See if you can take one of their holy books, degrees, or lessons, and see if you can flip that shit, manipulate it, and turn it into something occult. I want y'all to do that. Take anything you want, Buddhism, Islam, whatever teachings. And it's even more challenging to do something you can't stand. It makes it even more challenging and powerful. Take some shit that you have no desire for, and let's see how powerful you are. Can you find the occult, magical aspect in those teachings? That was the purpose of doing this. I want to make that clear. I would be interested to see what you guys come up with. Think about it, marinate on it. Even if you want to review this, take these 5% teachings. I would be real interested to hear if some people have decided to really go back through this and intensely study it. I would like to hear your occult perspectives on this. What did you get out of it? Not just what I was talking about tonight. I know there'll be some similarities, but I would like to hear I went through the 1 to 10, and this is what came to me while I was studying it. I think this is our way of how we could because we should take all the stuff that they threw on us and flip that shit and master it. All right. Woke media. Cool. You did it for the Hebrews. Definitely, like I say, when we do the event in October, I would like people to come and do presentations for that annual event in October that I mentioned. If anybody is going to come to that, contact me. I would like you guys to come and do a presentation on something, this or anything. All right. But anyway, appreciate it. Let's go wrap it up for this evening. I might come on again before Tuesday. I'm not sure what day. Maybe Friday. I'm not sure. Not 100%. And look for a side video I'm going to get ready to post. I was trying to do it today. I didn't have time. I'll try to get it done next couple of days. But look for a video, Gnostic Path of Santissima Muerte. It was inspired by an email I received. So I'm going to do that video shortly. All right. Anyway, appreciate everybody. Peace, and we'll talk soon.